Chapter 843. Ningchen was not an idiot. Since he could not find Han Yunxi, once he calmed down, he would definitely think of Long Fei Yi. After all, the guards had seen Long Fei Yi chase into the abyss. The Shadow Guard's report made Han Yunxi's originally warm eyes turn cold and filled with displeasure. Putting aside the grudges between Eastern and Western Qin, Ning Cheng had ripped off Han Yunxi's clothes and peeked at Han Yunxi's birthmark. He still had not settled this matter with him. If it wasn't for the Dark Wind clan's plot, perhaps even Han Yunxi would not have been able to stop Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi would have already challenged Ning Cheng to a duel. At this time of annoyance, Ning Cheng's arrival was definitely hitting the tip of the spear. Tell him that Western Qin's princess is currently negotiating with this king. There's nothing for him to do. Long Fei Yi said. Han Yunxi did not know whether to laugh or cry, but she did not stop him. In that instant, she suddenly thought of something. She indeed needed to have a good talk with Long Fei Yi. She believed that Long Fei Yi's shadow guard could still stop Ning Cheng. "What are you laughing at?" Long Fei Yi asked in a displeased voice. "Didn't you say you couldn't do it? Didn't you want me to leave? I'll just leave with Ning Cheng. From now on, you are the East Qin Crown Prince, and I am Western Qin's princess. Let's meet again on the battlefield." As Han Yunxi spoke, she really rose to leave, but Long Fei scooped her up and pressed her against his chest. Without a word, he kissed her. More accurately speaking, it wasn't a kiss, but a nibble on her lips. "Han Yunxi, my angry words. Are you serious? My true words, you've forgotten them?" Long Fei Yi gave a cold laugh. True words. Wouldn't exchange for the country? She remembered it clearly. This was directed at Jun Yixia. At that time, she didn't even know that the high and mighty Duke of Qin liked her, a lowly daughter of the Han family. "All right, let's go now. We should all conceal our identities and stay away from all of this," Han Yunxi said seriously. "I'll take you to Mount Tianshan. If you dare to go there now, you can do it before the snow closes the road. I won't go down the mountain." Long Fei Yi was also serious. As she spoke, she pulled Han Yunxi to get off the carriage. However, Han Yunxi still stopped him. She knew that even if he was willing, he might not feel at ease. Just like how she might not feel at ease even if she was willing. They would either not be together, or if they were together, they would be free and unrestrained, loving each other in a grand and spectacular manner. Han Yunxi held Long Fei Yi's hand and interlocked her fingers with his. "Yeah, I have something to ask you. It's very important." "Speak." He didn't let go. "Yi, you said before that the East Western Qin imperial family joined hands to fight the flood at Shajiang that year. Was that the cause of the civil war?" Han Yunxi asked seriously. She really had no other way. There was no way to resolve the hatred. She could only search for all possibilities from the source of the hatred. She remembered Ning and Long Fei Yi's statements. There was a huge discrepancy. When she was at her wit's end, she also had an extravagant hope that this hatred could be resolved from the source. Perhaps it wasn't because of their respective positions that they clung to. Perhaps there really was a misunderstanding in this hatred. For so many years, no one had been able to gain the trust of both the East and Western Qin imperial families. Han Yunxi was the first to make both sides speak the truth. "Yes," Long Fei Yi answered. "Did you lie to me?" "Yi, I want to know the truth." Han Yunxi looked seriously into Long Fei Yi's eyes. "I didn't lie to you about this." Long Fei Yi said seriously. In the past, East, West Qin, and Western Qin imperial family had joined hands to fight against each other. They spread rumors that the East Qin crown prince was the reincarnation of a star of calamity who would bring endless disasters to Cloud Realm continent. Back then, the East Qin emperor was sickly and weak. The crown prince was about to ascend the throne, but Western Qin's rumors were used by the East Qin imperial princes. After the emperor passed away, a power struggle broke out, and the court became unstable. Western Qin seized the chance to start a war. "Is that true?" Han Yunxi asked again. Long Fei Yi immediately knitted his brows. Han Yunxi quickly explained, I wanted to confirm it, because I heard that it wasn't the truth." "Ning Cheng told you the truth?" Long Fei Yi asked. It wasn't Ning Cheng, but Ning and Han Yunxi knew that Long Fei Yi was full of enmity towards the D clan. so she quickly explained, Do you think they'd lie to me? Han Yunxi had already told Long Fei Yi about her situation with the D clan. At the very least, Ning Cheng and Ning entrusted her immensely. What did Ningen say? Long Fei Yi finally relented. Perhaps Han Yunxi was the only one who could get him to back down. No one else would ever be able to do it. Do you know about the iron mine in the middle reaches of Sandy River? Han Yunxi asked. I do. The mine belonged to East Qin and was owned by the crown prince of the time. Long Fei Yi thought back a bit, then added, if they wanted to protect the mine, they'd have to destroy the dam and sacrifice the people downstream. Back then, the Black Clan's army was in charge of the dam. Crown Prince Wu ordered the Black Clan to transport as much of the mine as possible before the river flooded. When Long Fei Yi said this, Han Yunxi's heart skipped a beat, but she didn't interrupt him and continued to listen to him. Long Fei Yi continued, when the Black Clan's army was transporting the iron mine, the Wind Clan's army that was loyal to Western Qin suddenly attacked the Black Clan's army and stole the iron mine. The Black Clan's army resisted. At that time, the East Qin imperial family was fighting fiercely for the throne, so the Western Qin imperial family took this opportunity to start a war. Wind Clan, Black Clan, Han Yunxi shook her head and muttered, Yi, I heard that East Qin ordered the Black Clan's army to destroy the dam to protect the iron mine. Western Qin sent the Wind Clan's army to stop them. The two imperial families started a civil war, and the Black Clan's army destroyed East Qin. Long Fei Yi sneered without saying anything. Destroy the dam? Do you know how many mermaid soldiers the Mermaid Clan sacrificed to protect the dam? How could East Qin destroy the dam? What a joke. But Ningen has no reason to lie to me. Han Yunxi seriously said, the D clan was tricked. That is not impossible. Long Fei Yi said. When these words were said, the two of them were suddenly stunned. Wind Clan? Han Yunxi cried out in shock. Wind Clan? Long Fei Yi slowly narrowed his eyes. In the past, the Western Qin imperial family had given the matter of fighting the flood to the Wind Clan. Whether the Black Clan's army protected the dam or destroyed the dam, that was up to the Wind Clan. The Wind Clan's betrayal of the Western Qin imperial family, and by Yanqing's ambition. The Wind Clan deceiving the two imperial families was possible. There was no need to explain. The two of them could see the suspicion in each other's eyes. Long Fei Yi thought for a bit before saying cold, it seems like there is a need to have a good talk with Bai Yanqing. If he had to choose between Han Yunxi has no status and forever hostile, he could only choose the former. He could not tolerate the latter. However, if there was a third choice, even if there was only a slight possibility, he was willing to temporarily put down his hatred for the woman in front of him and explore this possibility. Bai Yanqing was the key. Although she knew she was suspicious, Han Yunxi could not help feeling happy. She could finally see hope. She even had a little selfish thought in her heart. She thought that even if the truth was not what she and Long Fei Yi guessed, she still wanted to make this guess true. Those grudges had been around for several generations. If they kept entangling and taking revenge, when would it end? Why not give the Eastern and Western Qin imperial family a chance to let go, and also give her and Long Fei Yi a chance to be together? Let's figure out everything and then make a choice, all right? Han Yunxi asked seriously. All right. Long Fei Yi did not hesitate and agreed decisively. He and Han Yunxi were the same. Her sense of responsibility, her conscience, and her dilemma were all things that he'd experienced. It was because he understood and endured it that he lied to her in the beginning. Bai Yanqing, since you exposed this prince's lie, you must take responsibility for this lie. Long Fei Yi secretly swore that he must make Bai Yanqing pay the price. Seeing a glimmer of hope, the heavy atmosphere between the two eased up quite a bit. Han Yunxi personally poured a cup of tea for Long Fei Yi and smiled at him. He looked at Han Yunxi's sweet smile. He suddenly had a selfish thought and thought of a way out. It was also the biggest concession he made for Han Yunxi. He thought that no matter what he learned from Bai Yanqing, no matter what the truth was, even if there was no misunderstanding between the East and Western Qin and only hatred, he was willing to treat this hatred as a misunderstanding and dissolve it. So, no matter what, he had to catch Bai Yanqing before Ning Cheng. Long Fei Yi thought of a person, Gu Beiwei. Seeing Long Fei Ye's tense face, Han Yunshi couldn't help scratching him. Smile. We have a way. Long Fei Yi couldn't help smiling as he rubbed Han Yunshi's bangs. I know. Very soon, Han Yunshi and Long Fei Yi discussed all the details of the ceasefire, including the reason for the ceasefire, the time, the restrictions on both sides, and even how to deal with by yanching together. Just as they finished talking, the Shadow Guard came to report, Your Highness, Ningcheng has brought a few bodyguards and is coming. Let Su Dongling go, Long Fei Yi said. Han Yunshi hesitated for a moment, but still stopped him. Yi, see you next time? She had been here for too long. If she stayed any longer, how could she convince Ningcheng that she was saved by Long Fei Yi and that she could negotiate cooperation with Long Fei Yi? Before they caught the Feng clan and restrained Jun Yixie's cavalry, they could only and must remain in their original state. Of course, Han Yunshi wouldn't tell Ningcheng that she had settled all the details of the cooperation in one go. If everything was settled, what reason would she have to see Long Fei Yi? Long Fei Yi knew the stakes of the matter better than Han Yunshi. But in the end, he couldn't bear to let go. In the end, Han Yunshi broke free from his hand and jumped out of the carriage. As soon as she got out, Long Fei Yi pulled her again. Come up, I'll take you there. No. Han Yunshi immediately refused. She was afraid that she would hesitate and be reluctant and give herself away too much. You see you next time. She walked forward decisively, but after a few steps, her pace gradually slowed down. Finally, she stopped and looked back. Long Fei Yi was standing beside the carriage, looking at her. They stared at each other. How could he be reluctant to part with her? After a long silence, Long Fei Yi finally opened his mouth and said, Han Yunshi, why aren't you leaving? Han Yunshi could still hold it in, but when she heard this familiar sentence, her strength suddenly collapsed. In the past, every time he left first, he would look back at her and ask her, Han Yunshi, why aren't you leaving? No matter how far it was, he would wait for her. She would run over and return to his side. But now it was such a scene. Looking at Long Fei Ye's cold and solemn expression, Han Yunshi's eyes reddened. She suddenly ran towards him and stopped in front of him. Long Fei Yi was helpless and hugged her. Let me send you there. Chapter 844. Han Yunshi finally returned to the carriage. It was at this time that she realized she wasn't strong at all. She wasn't decisive at all. She returned to her familiar position and leaned on Long Fei Ye's shoulder. She suddenly wanted to be willful and go back with Long Fei Yi like this. What East Qin, Western Qin, what national enmity, what family hatred, what responsibility, what conscience, all of that should scram. The carriage quickly headed north. Long Fei Yi sat there without saying a word. Han Yunshi hoped he would say something. She secretly glanced at him and saw that he was expressionless. She gritted her teeth and swallowed the words she wanted to say back into her stomach. She leaned on his shoulder and held his arm, interlocking her fingers with his. After being silent for a while, Han Yunshi finally couldn't take it anymore. She deliberately held his arm very tightly, wanting Long Fei Yi to speak. However, he didn't seem to feel any pain and remained indifferent. She clearly knew she couldn't stay, but she couldn't help wanting to stay. She clearly knew it was useless to say anything, but she really wanted him to say something. Even if it was just to coax her, it would be fine. She had never been this dependent and unwilling to part with him. Uncomfortable. Long Fei Yi, are you really stupid or are you pretending to be stupid? It was only a short journey from this mountain to the border between the two armies. Long Fei Yi. Could it be he was planning to remain silent until they separated? Although she wouldn't tell Ningcheng that they had already discussed the cooperation and that they still had many opportunities to continue negotiating, how could it be that easy to get rid of the people on both sides? Han Yunshi was depressed. She looked up at Long Fei Yi, but Long Fei Yi was still expressionless. He looked forward and didn't even look at her. She used her strength and tightly held his fingers. She was so tight that she hurt, but Long Fei Yi didn't feel any pain or itch. Han Yunshi was about to cry. AI. This fellow was even more ruthless than her. If she couldn't do it, she shouldn't have any thoughts. When she couldn't be willful, she shouldn't let her emotions run wild. How could everything go according to one's wishes all the time? Han Yunshi comforted herself and gradually let go of Long Fei Ye's hand. Long Fei Ye did not hold her hand again, nor did he look at her. After a short while, the carriage stopped. Before they got out of the car, they heard Ning Cheng's voice. Long Fei Yi, is the princess of Western Qin in your hands? Long Fei Yi, hand him over. Otherwise, I won't hold back. With Ning Cheng's voice, he was probably going crazy. Han Yunxi felt helpless. Just as she was about to get out of the car, Long Fei Yi suddenly stopped her. If you don't want to leave, then stay here. Han Yunxi looked at him in shock. Long Fei Yi didn't explain anything. He pushed her back and then got off the carriage, leaving Han Yunxi sitting in the carriage, her heart beating faster. What did he mean? As soon as Long Fei Yi got out of the carriage, Ning Cheng grew even more agitated. Long Fei Yi, the princess fell into the abyss. You chased her down before I did, so she must be in your hands. Hand her over immediately, or else, before Ning Cheng could finish, Long Fei Yi cut him off. Otherwise what? Do you think your Ning clan troops can contend against your lordship with your current strength? Don't blame your lordship for not reminding you. But there are 10 great clans in Tianning who are very dissatisfied with your Ning clan and Cloud Realm Trade Consortium. Ning Cheng narrowed his eyes at these words. So the princess really is in your hands. What do you want? Ning Cheng had long been on guard against Long Fei Ye's warning. Although Long Fei Yi had been the one to propose a truce, Ning Cheng was still at a disadvantage in terms of strength. If the Ning clan troops didn't have the red coat cannons, Long Fei Ye's troops would probably be marching all the way to the capital by now. The Ning clan had the red coat cannons, but Long Fei Yi had the power of the Jianghu. Ning Cheng had suffered losses at the hands of the Jianghu before. They wouldn't directly participate in the war, but would bring him all sorts of inconveniences, troubles, and obstacles. Now that Long Fei Yi was in control of Celestial Mountain, he was in control of the Jianghu as well. As soon as Long Fei Yi used the power of the Jianghu, the consequences would be even more severe than Duanmu Yao's. In other words, Ning Cheng wanted a truce even more than Long Fei Yi. This crown prince can agree to a truce and work with you against the Wen clan, but Han Yunxi must remain in my camp as a hostage. As soon as Long Fei Yi finished speaking, Han Yunxi's heart skipped a beat. She finally understood why Long Fei Yi had been so indifferent earlier. It turned out that he had been silently planning this. Hostage? Only he could think of such a thing, and only he dared to bring it up. He was clearly the one who had taken the initiative to negotiate a truce. All right? Impossible. Ning Cheng's voice was terrifyingly cold. Long Fei Yi, hand over the princess immediately, or we'll meet on the battlefield. Someone come. Inform Bailey Yuan Long to prepare for battle. After speaking, he got into the carriage and casually ordered, Uncle Gao, let's go back. He was already sitting next to her, but Han Yunxi was still in a daze. If last night's tenderness was like a beautiful dream, then at this moment, she felt that everything in front of her was like a dream, an inconceivable dream. She looked at Long Fei Ye's domineering figure, cold side profile, and indifferent eyes. She was so moved that she didn't know what to say. Women, sometimes they were just this stupid. They didn't care whether things would succeed or not, whether it was realistic or not. All they needed was a man's attitude. Thus, women would often judge a man based on his attitude, rather than his true strength or ability to act. Even someone as intelligent and calm as Han Yunxi was more or less like this. How could they really start a war? If they really started a war, wouldn't all their efforts be in vain? Long Fei Ye's attitude was enough. However, Long Fei Ye wasn't a man good at expressing his attitude. He was more of a man of action. At this moment, he wasn't expressing his attitude, he was taking action. Uncle Gao really started the carriage to leave. Han Yunxi was shocked. Long Fei Yi, you dare. Ning Cheng couldn't believe it. He was about to give chase when the shadow guards flew over to block his path. Very quickly, Ning Cheng and the shadow guards began to fight. As soon as Ning Cheng took out the pear blossom rain needles, Su Donglin's eyes flashed with a complicated look. He motioned for everyone to retreat. Ning Cheng took the chance to chase up to the carriage and aimed the pear blossom rain needles at the carriage. Long Fei Yi, hand over the princess. Ning Cheng roared. Long Fei Yi didn't even get out of the carriage. Instead, he remained cold and replied, 2 months. In 2 months, this crown prince will flatten Tianning and destroy your Ning clan army. Ning Cheng cut him off coldly. What awaits you will be Jun Xie's 100,000 cavalry. If Long Fei Yi really destroyed the Ning clan army, wouldn't the Northern Dynasty's emperors be on guard against him? In 2 months, Jun Xie's 100,000 cavalry would all arrive. Long Fei Yi laughed coldly. Ning Cheng, you're a smart man. Do you think the Northern Dynasty's emperors will choose to trust Jun Xie's sincerity or this prince's truce agreement? These words stunned Ning Cheng as if he'd been hit in the head. That's right. Long Fei Yi still had a choice. He could lead his troops north to conquer Tianning while signing a truce agreement with the Northern Dynasty's emperors. This way, the Northern Dynasty's emperors wouldn't have to worry about the rear and could truly suppress Jun Xie. In other words, Long Fei Yi could stop fighting with the Ning clan troops and work together to deal with Jun Xie. He could also work with Northern Li to deal with both the Ning clan troops and Jun Xie. His Ning clan troops, on the other hand, would be in a passive position. They would be completely suppressed by Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi, don't forget, if you can work with Northern Li, so can my Western Qin, Ning Cheng retorted coldly. Long Fei Yi laughed coldly. Ning Cheng, why don't you take a gamble? It wasn't that Ning Cheng didn't dare to gamble, but he knew he'd lose without a doubt. Han Yunshi had long told him that Long Fei Yi had many spies in Northern Li. The Long Fei Yi was the one behind the horse plague in Northern Li. He, on the other hand, had no advantage in Northern Li. Long Fei Yi had many choices. As for him, other than taking the risk and cooperating with the Foam clan, he could only be controlled by Long Fei Yi. Ning Cheng finally hesitated. Long Fei Yi, I can't make this decision. I want to see the princess. In fact, this was their real negotiation. In public, Long Fei Yi should let Han Yunshi, the Western Qin princess, come forward. But in private, he wanted to kill Ning Cheng. How could he let Han Yunshi show her face in public? It wasn't like Long Fei Yi hadn't used public power to avenge private wrongs. This is your D clan's choice, not Han Yunshi's. Long Fei Yi said, Ning Cheng, you can give up the Western Qin princess. If you rely on the Foam clan, you can also show your sincerity and cooperate with this crown prince. Ning Cheng was a smart person. He didn't need Long Fei Yi to explain. He understood the meaning of Long Fei Yi's words. He still had another option, which was to cooperate with the Wind clan. However, cooperating with the Wind clan meant betraying the West Qin imperial family along with the Wind clan. In that case, it didn't matter to him who had the princess. If he chose to cooperate with Long Fei Yi and agreed to take the princess as a hostage, it would be the sincerity that Long Fei Yi wanted. Or it could be said that he wanted to restrain him. Ning Cheng would never choose the former, but he was even more unwilling to choose the latter. Coldly, he looked at the carriage, his right hand tightly holding the pear flower storm needles. He wanted to kill Long Fei Yi right now. However, he didn't have the courage to use the pear flower storm needles because he knew that Han Yunshi was in the carriage. In the end, Ning Cheng knelt down on one knee and said loudly, Princess, you have made your choice. Please tell this subordinate, what should this subordinate do? Han Yunshi didn't have time to feel the surprise that Long Fei Yi gave her. Her heart was blocked. Although Long Fei Yi stopped her, she still got out of the carriage. Although Ning Cheng didn't know what was going on between her and Long Fei Yi, since he said so, she couldn't stay silent anymore. She at least had to give Ning Cheng an explanation, a reason to be relieved. Han Yunshi got out of the carriage, and Long Fei Yi followed closely behind. When Ning Cheng saw Han Yunshi, his dim eyes suddenly lit up. He looked at Han Yunshi from head to toe. Your Highness, are you well? I'm fine. Long Fei Yi saved me. I've already made a deal with him. I'll be a hostage. Western Qin will spare no effort to deal with the Foam clan and Northern Li together. Han Yunshi said seriously. Princess, how can you believe Long Fei Yi's words? As Ning Cheng spoke, he knelt down on the other knee and kowtowed with a head that he had been proud of for more than 20 years. Your Highness, please reconsider. Seeing Ning Cheng like this, How could Han Yunshi not feel guilty? Guilty? Regardless of right or wrong, regardless of the future, right now, her actions were trampling on Ning Cheng's loyalty. Ning Jing's words rang in her ears again. Han Yunshi, even if it's you, you can't trample on the D clan's loyalty and honor. Han Yunshi didn't say anything for a long time. Long Feiyi glanced at her and casually threw something to Ning Cheng. Take it. This is this crown prince's sincerity. Chapter 845. Ning Cheng caught the thing that Long Feiyi threw over. When he opened it, his expression changed. When Han Yunshi saw it, her heart trembled in fear. This thing was none other than the East Qin Imperial Jade Seal. Long Feiyi was using the East Qin Imperial Jade Seal to trade for her. So domineering and so decisive. What truth or lie was no longer important. Actions were the final result and determined everything. From the moment Long Feiyi decided to keep her, he had already made a choice between her and his national enmity. He chose the latter. So he put down his hatred for the D clan and showed his sincerity in cooperating. Not to mention what path East and Western Qin would take after dealing with the Feng clan, whether it would be reconciliation or an even more intense battle. At least now, Long Feiyi had taken the first step. Seeing such a domineering and decisive Long Feiyi, Han Yunshi really wished that she was the real Western Qin princess, a Western Qin princess with great power. Just like him, she could be willful, dictatorial, domineering, and spectacular. However, even though she was the princess of Western Qin, she was still under Ning Cheng's control, wasn't she? Ning Cheng suddenly stood up and asked Long Feiyi why. The Imperial Jade Seal in his hand was heavy and real. It couldn't be fake. Ning Cheng couldn't understand. Since Long Feiyi had so many choices, why did he choose to cooperate with Western Qin and show such sincerity? A trace of worry slowly rose in Ning Cheng's heart. Before he could confirm it, Long Feiyi gave him the answer. Because this prince wants her. It was just one sentence. It was so simple, so direct, and so domineering. Ning Cheng was stunned, and so was Han Yunshi. She never thought that Long Feiyi would reveal everything. She had spent a lot of effort to win Ning Cheng's trust. As for Long Feiyi himself, the pressure on him in the East Qin camp was not small. How could he? Before Han Yunshi could regain her senses, Long Feiyi had already held her hand. Ning Cheng, is this reason enough? Ning Cheng had no time to care about Long Feiyi. He looked at Han Yunshi with a frown. His eyes were full of questions, but no one saw the pain hidden behind his questioning. At this moment, no one could see the pain in his left hand. Long Feiyi's heavy sincerity had helped Han Yunshi repay the guilt she felt towards Western Qin and the D clan. She had lied to Ning Cheng, but Long Feiyi had not. Han Yunshi magnanimously replied to Ning Cheng, I love him. Ning Cheng's right hand cracked as he clenched it. A trace of hatred flashed in his eyes. Han Yunshi, don't forget your oath. I will remember. Even if I love him, I will not betray Western Qin. Han Yunshi coldly said, You've already betrayed him. Ning Cheng angrily said, I haven't. Han Yunshi sternly denied. Ning Cheng, you should know better than me that Western Qin has no other choice. They can only stop the war and cooperate with Long Feiyi. Ning Cheng began to laugh. Han Yunshi, have you ever thought that if the Feng clan is destroyed, Northern Li will fall into Long Feiyi's hands? You can't be naive enough to think that Western Qin can survive, right? Long Feiyi, who had been silent the entire time, finally opened his mouth. He grabbed Ning Cheng's collar as he approached Han Yunshi. He coldly looked at him. Ning Cheng, at that time, we can only rely on our own abilities. For the Feng clan, this prince is not yielding to you, but to Han Yunshi. Ning Cheng swatted away Long Feiyi's hand. He coldly looked at Han Yunshi and sternly said, My Western Qin does not need this kind of yielding. Han Yunshi helplessly shook her head. Ning Cheng, then tell me, what should I do? She had to lead the Ning family's soldiers and fight to the death. She clearly knew that she would be destroyed, but she would be like moths to a flame. She had already sacrificed so many people. Was it still not enough? Was she going to take revenge generation after generation? What was it for? So what if she took revenge and restore her country? Would she be able to live in peace forever? East and West Qin were originally one and the same. They were originally one race, a glorious and powerful empire. Back then, whether it was a misunderstanding or hatred, could they really not be resolved? Could they not live and prosper together like they did in the past? Ning Cheng, do you really want me to lead all of Western Qin's loyalists into the fire pit, knowing that they will die one after another? Is this not considered letting them down? Han Yinchi questioned. At least we won't let down Western Qin. Ning Cheng coldly said. Aren't they Western Qin? Han Yunshi asked in disbelief. Ning Cheng, tell me, what is Western Qin? What is it? Is it you? Is it me? Is it the D clan? Is it the Shadow clan? Is it everyone? Or is it just a dream? An unreachable dream that must be sacrificed generation after generation? Ning Cheng, I'll go back with you now. But you have to tell me, where should Western Qin go from here? Western Qin, will there be a tomorrow? Han Yinshi's voice was choked with sobs. Ning Cheng was silent. Actually, he didn't know what to do. There was only one thought in his mind, which was that he didn't want this woman to leave and return to Long Fei Ye's side. Ning Cheng, the civil strife in Eastern and Western Qin was caused by an iron mine. Ningen said that East Qin abandoned the people downstream to protect the iron mine. Do you know how many mermaid soldiers the Bai clan sacrificed to resist the flood? How could East Qin ignore the Bai clan's sacrifice for an iron mine? If it's like this, why is the Bai clan still loyal to East Qin? Han Yunshi said seriously. Ning Cheng, East Qin sent the Black clan to steal the mined ore, but the Wind clan station in Western Qin mistakenly thought that East Qin destroyed the dam to protect the mine. Was this a misunderstanding between Eastern and Western Qin, or a misunderstanding between the Black clan and the Wind clan? Or was it a conspiracy between the two of them? You believe Long Fei Ye's sophistry? Ning Cheng smiled coldly. Long Fei Ye's eyes grew cold. If not for Han Yunshi, he wouldn't be wasting words with Ning Cheng right now. He also wouldn't have spent so much effort to hide the truth of Northern Li's situation and convince Bailey Yuanlong to call for a ceasefire. He would have personally led his troops to sweep through Taoning long ago. Ning Cheng, do you want this prince to have Bailey Yuanlong fish out the bones of the mermaid soldiers from the bottom of the Sandy River so you can take a good look? Long Fei Yi said angrily. Ning Cheng was stunned. If Long Fei Yi wasn't lying, then East Qin really didn't need to protect the iron mine and lose the Bai clan's morale. In that case, the cause of the civil war all those years ago was very likely a misunderstanding. Or perhaps, as Han Yunshi had said, a conspiracy. The Wind clan, Ning Cheng's heart trembled with fear. He remembered how the Wind and Black clans had been the vanguard during the war between the two countries. The Wind clan had been routed one by one, and was the main reason why the Western Qin Empire had been destroyed so quickly. After the Black clan had destroyed the Western Qin Empire, they had switched sides to East Qin not long after. The Black clan, Ning Cheng suddenly looked towards Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi's lips were curled into a cold smile. Whatever Ning Cheng had thought of, he had thought of as well. After a while, Ning Cheng was still angry. This is only your conjecture. Ning Cheng, this is only a conjecture, but it is also an opportunity. An opportunity to save everyone. Han Yunshi loudly said. Ning Cheng looked into Han Yunshi's eyes. He no longer called her princess and directly called her by her name. Han Yunshi, if the truth is hatred, what will you choose? Han Yunshi replied, without hesitation. I will answer you when I know the truth. What if I want to know the answer now? Ning Cheng asked back. Han Yunshi laughed. Ning Cheng, Western Qin's princess, do I have the right to refuse you? Ning Cheng seemed to realize something and suddenly fell silent. Han Yunshi approached. Lung asked again, Ning Cheng, I will answer you now. I will go back with you now. Long Fei, you will still work with me to deal with the Feng clan. After we destroy the Feng clan, we will compete with Long Fei Yi for this world. It will depend on our own abilities. At this point, Ning Cheng and Long Fei Yi both looked over. However, Han Yunshi didn't finish her words. She continued, But no matter who wins or loses, as long as I complete the princess's mission, I will still be with him unless I die, unless he doesn't want me anymore. So, no matter who wins or loses in the future, after everything is over, you and I will die together. If she won, Long Fei Yi would lose. If she lost, Long Fei Yi would win. No matter who won or lost, both of them would have a clear conscience for Eastern and Western Qin. Long Fei Yi had even taken out the Imperial Jade Seal. Why should she care so much? If that day really came, she would be willing to be nameless. As long as she could stay by his side, what harm was there? Long Fei Yi rubbed her bangs and smiled faintly. You are not allowed to die. No matter who wins or loses, I will not abandon you. I will marry you again. Believe me. Ningqing looked at them. His left hand was clearly in pain, but he still clenched it little by little. The more he clenched it, the more painful it became. I believe you, Han Yunqi said. She broke free from Long Fei Yi's hand and stood in front of Ningqing. She said indifferently, let's go back. Long Fei Yi's eyes flashed with a trace of reluctance, but he didn't stop her. Although in the carriage, this woman had almost broken his hand, but in the end, she was still strong, stronger than he had imagined. She had to be resolute, decisive, straightforward, natural, and unrestrained. Han Yunqi had already taken several steps, but Ningqing still didn't leave. Finally, he said to Long Fei Yi, no matter what, I will not cooperate with you. You and I will stop fighting. Against the Feng clan, we will rely on our own abilities. I, the princess of Western Qin, do not need you to give in. He caught up to Han Yunqi and stuffed the Imperial Jade Seal into her hands. Cold, he said, Han Yunqi, take it. After I destroy the Feng clan, I will return it to Long Fei Yi. Remember to come back. I will wait for you to come back and fight side by side. Ningqing's stubbornness was infuriating. Ningqing's persistence was heartbreaking. But at least he had given in and followed Han Yunqi's wishes. But at least this time, not only for Western Qin, but also for the pain and love in his hands. He was persistent to the end. He walked past Han Yunqi and left without looking back. Watching Ningqing's back disappear into the distance, Han Yunqi was filled with emotion. Even if Long Fei Yi stopped the war, and Ningqing had nothing to worry about, he couldn't destroy the Feng clan before Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi walked over and cold said, he will lose for sure. You are not allowed to help him. Han Yunqi did not say anything. She would not help Ningqing or Long Fei Yi when it came to dealing with the Feng clan. She would let the two of them compete. Love, hatred, defeat, victory, and defeat. It would all depend on their own abilities. It felt good to confess everything, to say the truest thoughts in the bottom of her heart. There was no deception, no guilt, and her entire heart was relaxed. This feeling was too good. She said, Long Fei Yi, if we really can avoid fighting, then let's have a good fight and then be together forever, okay? Long Fei Yi grabbed her. Let's talk about it after we catch Bai Yanqing. Why are you thinking so much? Let's go back. The word go back woke Han Yunqi from her complicated thoughts. Yes, why was she thinking so much? She should enjoy the present. Back in the carriage, Han Yunqi waited for a long time. She thought that Long Fei Yi would ask about the oath, but who knew that Long Fei Yi did not ask? Chapter 846. If she hadn't made that oath, Ningqing might not have believed Han Yunqi so quickly. Han Yunqi wouldn't have reached where she was today, either. Although Han Yunqi consoled herself that the oath had been made in the name of a Western Qin princess, and not her, she still brooded over it. Long Fei Yi must have heard Ningqing's fierce questioning. He had no reason not to ask. Long Fei Yi found a comfortable spot to sit cross-legged and rest his hands on Han Yunqi's body. Rub them. You were about to crush them just then. You clearly didn't want to leave, but you still showed off. Han Yunqi was too ashamed to show her face. All she could do was obediently massage his hands. As she did so, she waited and waited, but Long Fei Yi still didn't ask. In the end, she couldn't help but speak up. Long Fei Yi knitted his brows. What did you call me? Han Yunshi was at a loss for words. She wasn't stupid enough to not know what he meant. Fei! Han Yunshi muttered. Long Fei Yi didn't speak but stared at her. His deep, dark eyes were filled with amusement, as if he wouldn't let her go until she said something satisfactory. Fei! Han Yunshi muttered again. Long Fei Yi wasn't satisfied and continued to stare at her. Long Fei Yi! She simply shouted. If he hadn't reminded her, she would sometimes call him Yi or a Yi. Now that he'd reminded her, she really couldn't do it, especially under his malicious gaze. She found it even harder to open her mouth. Those two forms of address would remind her of some blushing images. Han Yunshi's shout had already startled Uncle Gao, who was driving outside, but Long Fei Yi was still indifferent. Han Yunshi pushed him away and quickly changed the topic. Long Fei Yi, guess what I swore? Strangely, Long Fei Yi no longer bothered about how to address her. He said with certainty, she must be very vicious. Han Yunshi felt that the matter of addressing Long Fei Yi would not be settled so easily, but she did not have time to think about it. Very vicious, she admitted honestly. Moreover, it was done with your. Before he could finish his sentence, Long Fei Yi continued. Do you want me to be struck by lightning, torn apart by 5 horses, and bleed from my 7 orifices? Or do you want me to just die? Han Yunshi immediately muffled his mouth, but Long Fei removed her hand and clicked his tongue with a sigh. Then he'll die a horrible death. Han Yunshi, this prince only found out today how vicious you are. Han Yunshi lowered her head. Long Fei Yi's lips curled into an evil smile, but Han Yunshi did not see it. She sat there like a pitiful bug that had made a mistake and was waiting to be punished. Her head was almost buried in her knees. But in reality, she was hesitating. As for her identity, should she say it or not? How should she say it so that Long Fei Yi would believe and understand? Long Fei Yi stared at her for a while. In the end, he lifted her chin and forced her to look up at him. Han Yunshi, if you can please this prince can consider forgiving you, he said in a serious voice. Han Yunshi immediately glared at him and slapped his hand away. Long Fei Yi, I'll tell you a secret. Listen carefully. In this world, I'll only tell you one. Could it be you want to tell another person? Long Fei Yi asked back. I'm serious. Han Yunshi anxiously said. I'm also serious? Long Fei Yi really was not joking. I'm not a Western Qin princess. Han Yunshi's words made Long Fei Yi knit his brows and look at her in doubt. Han Yunshi knew that he would have this kind of reaction. She emphasized again, I'm serious. I'm really not a Western Qin princess. Long Fei Yi wanted to speak, but Han Yunshi tightly held his hands. Long Fei Yi, the Han family's daughter, Lady Tianxin's daughter. You are indeed a Western Qin princess. But I'm not. I'm not the real Han family's daughter. Han Yunshi. Han Yunshi's serious expression made Long Fei Yi unable to doubt her. Didn't he also doubt the authenticity of Han Yunshi marrying into the King Qin manor? The Han Yunshi of the Han family was weak, cowardly, and also a waste in medicine. As for the Han Yunshi marrying into the King Qin manor, she was a completely different person. He had investigated countless times, but he could not find anything. He had also questioned Han Yunshi, but Han Yunshi used her low-key nature as an excuse to evade him. What is going on? Then who are you? Where did the real Han Yunshi go? Long Fei Yi anxiously asked. If the woman in front of him was not the real Han Yunshi, not the Western Qin princess, then why did he have to care so much? Why did he have to bear so much guilt? He would no longer have to bear the guilt towards East Qin, his parents, and the mermaid clan. He could openly bring her back now and have all the East Qin soldiers kneel before her and respect her. He could join hands with her in the future to flatten Tianning and conquer Cloud Realm. Han Yunshi could see the pleasant surprise and expectation in Long Fei Yi's anxious eyes. But how could she explain it? Long Fei Yi, she had clearly thought it through, but she still hesitated. Han Yunshi tightly held Long Fei Yi, but it wasn't enough. She tightly hugged him, and only then did she feel safe enough to tell the truth. Long Fei Yi, I don't belong to this world. My soul came from several thousand years in the future. I'm also called Han Yunxi, and my appearance is very similar to the Han Yunxi of the Han family. When I came, the Han Yunxi of the Han family was in the bridal sedan, wanting to marry you. Her soul died, and I inherited everything from her. Do you understand? Han Yunxi finally told the truth. She didn't know why the Han family's Han Yunxi had died in the bridal sedan without any pain or illness. Rather than saying she died, it was better to say her soul disappeared. She thought that the original owner's soul must have disappeared. Otherwise, how could she be reborn? If it wasn't for that oath, she wouldn't have said all of this. Because she couldn't explain this matter, she could only speculate. Long Fei Yi was silent. His eyes looking at her were a bit stunned. Han Yunxi was suddenly afraid, but she didn't know what she was afraid of. She hugged him even tighter, as if she was afraid that she would leave him and not be able to protect him. Long Fei Yi, do you understand? I'm not a Western Qin princess, but I can be considered a Western Qin princess. Han Yunxi found that her explanation was useless. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything. Han Yunxi was anxious. Long Fei Yi, do you understand? Do you believe what I said? She cupped his face in her hands and stared into his eyes. Long Fei, say something. Answer me. Long Fei Yi took her hand away. His handsome brows were still tightly knitted. He asked, Han Yunxi, since you don't belong to this world, why did you come here? Han Yunxi could only shake her head. I don't know either. Will you leave? Long Fei Yi asked again. When will you leave? Han Yunxi opened her mouth. She wanted to answer, but she couldn't. Han Yunxi, if you don't belong to this world, then do you still belong to me? Long Fei Yi asked again. His voice was very deep, and Han Yunxi was afraid. He let her hug him and lowered his head. After a while, he said in a deep voice, Answer me. Han Yunxi didn't know if she would leave or when she would leave. If she answered without knowing the situation, it would be considered a lie. She admitted it. Long Fei Yi, you lied to me so many times. If 1 time is 100 times, then it's a few hundred times. I lied to you once. Does that mean we're even? Long Fei Yi, I don't want to leave. Her cold hands held his face, forcing him to look up at her. However, he still didn't look up. How weak was he to suddenly become so weak? Long Fei Yi, I won't leave, she said very firmly. She let him lower his head. She simply laid down on his legs, looked up at him, and wrapped her arms around his neck. Yi, believe me, I belong to you. I'll always belong to you. They had just agreed yesterday that he wanted her to accompany him forever. Long Fei Yi, even if it's a lie, please believe it. Okay? Because I also believe it. With that, Han Yunxi pressed Long Fei Yi down and kissed him. She kissed him crazily. However, no matter how she kissed him, she was still afraid. She couldn't calm the fear in her heart, let alone appease him. Long Fei Yi, you don't believe it. How can I believe what I said? Han Yunxi got up and sat on Long Fei Yi's legs. She hugged him, kissed him, and unbuttoned his clothes uncontrollably. She only wanted to give completely. She only wanted to have completely. Long Fei Yi let her go crazy. He only lowered his eyes, thinking about something. When Han Yunxi clumsily and hurriedly took off each other's clothes and took him down, Long Fei Yi woke up from his thoughts. He glanced at Han Yunxi and suddenly flipped over. He was even more out of control than she was, even crazier than she was. Uncle Gao was so shocked that he could no longer pretend to be deaf and mute. The carriage stopped abruptly, and Uncle Gao fastened the reins with a complicated expression. He retreated to one side to wait. Long Fei Yi must have been scared out of his mind. Time and time again, he wanted to crush Han Yunxi and destroy her, destroy the world. After some time, he finally collapsed on top of Han Yunxi, exhausted. Yunxi, I believe you. Really. Then he lost all strength and fell into a deep sleep on top of Han Yunxi. Han Yunxi's delicate body was covered in bruises and bruises, all of them left by him. She felt like her soul had been pierced through, but it didn't hurt at all. Perhaps only destruction could lead to rebirth. She actually found relief and release from this ruthlessness. She hugged Long Fei Yi tightly and closed her eyes, the corners of them cold. "I believe you too. Really." When Han Yunshi woke up, she discovered that she was no longer in the carriage, but lying in a tent. Long Fei Yi was already by her side. How long had she slept? Had they reached the East Qin barracks? She wanted to crawl up, but her body was too sore to move. Thinking back to that madness, she smiled faintly. So what if I'm crazy? She lay there for a long time before she could get up. She walked around in a circle and discovered that the tent wasn't very spacious, but it wasn't small either. Tall, wide curtains divided the tent into two rooms, an inner and outer one. The inner room counted as a bedroom. In the barracks, most people slept on the floor, so there was no such thing as a bed. This bedroom had a layer of tatami mats higher than the outer room, so the bedding was spread out on the floor. Two chests were placed on the side. Han Yunshi was curious and opened them to see new clothes. They were all hers, not Long Fei Yi's. Only then did she realize that she was a hostage and could only be confined here. There was no way she could share a room with Long Fei Yi. Even so, it was better than being separated by a battlefield. Han Yunshi opened the door to the barracks. Chapter 847. Han Yunshi opened the tent door and found that the person guarding the door was none other than Su Donglin. Su Donglin and a group of shadow guards had followed them all the way and already knew everything. "Master," Su Donglin whispered. Han Yunshi was very pleased to hear him call her master. She whispered, "Where's His Highness?" "His Highness is at the main camp, discussing the truce with General Bailey." Su Donglin answered truthfully. He was afraid that his mistress didn't know where the main camp was, so he deliberately pointed to the east. "Master, it's over there. You see that chess piece, right? It's over there." Han Yunshi looked over and found that the main camp was very big. It was at least 1 li away from her, which was farther than she thought. "How long did I sleep?" Han Yunshi asked. "I arrived the night before yesterday." Su Donglin didn't know what happened in the carriage. When the carriage stopped, Uncle Gao told him that His Highness ordered them to stop and rest. He said seriously, "Master, you must be tired. You can sleep at ease after returning to His Highness's side. His Highness will take care of all the important matters." Han Yunshi's ears were a little hot. She was indeed tired. She only hoped that the following days wouldn't be too tiring. She whispered, "General Bailey, what's his attitude?" Su Donglin lowered his voice. "Master, General Bailey is very happy that His Highness brought you back as a hostage. Last night, he wrote a truce agreement according to His Highness's wishes and sent an envoy to send it to Ning Chung. Ning Chung replied this morning and didn't have any objections. So, tomorrow morning, Eastern and Western Qin will stop all the major battles on the battlefield and keep some small battles to avoid arousing suspicion from Northern Li and the Foam clan." Han Yunshi nodded. The truce agreement was discussed by her and Long Fei Yi. She was clear about it. They stopped the major battles and kept the small battles. They didn't intend to announce the reason for the truce to the public. In this way, it would leave the world with all kinds of suspicions. The Northern Li imperial family and the Foam clan would also have many suspicions, and the more suspicious they were, the more they would not dare to act rashly. They might even mistakenly think that Long Fei Yi's strength was limited and that he could not contend against Ning Chung. "Master, Ning Chung requested to keep the matter of His Highness, taking you hostage, a secret. Therefore, in our camp, only General Bailey and a few deputy generals know about this. I'll have to trouble you during this period." As Su Donglin spoke, he added in a low voice, "Master, His Highness instructed me to remind you the moment you woke up. Other than me and a few trusted shadow guard, you can't trust anyone else." Han Yunshi nodded. Of course, she understood. This was the army camp, the Bai clan's territory. If she was exposed, Long Fei Yi would be in a lot of trouble. She believed that Long Fei Yi had the ability to subdue Bailey Yuanlong, but at this time, the morale of the army was the most important. Once the matter between her and Long Fei Yi was exposed, not to mention the East Qin camp, even some outsiders would be happy to add to the chaos. Long Fei Yi had to focus all his attention on dealing with the Foam clan. He couldn't waste his energy on internal strife. Thinking of this, Han Yunshi couldn't help but thank Ning Cheng. No matter what Ning Cheng's goal was, at least he had saved her and Long Fei Yi a lot of trouble. Ning Cheng was very gentlemanly in this matter. Is there any news from Gu Beiyue? Han Yunqi asked. This subordinate is not clear on this. I will have to ask His Highness. Su Donglin honestly replied. Han Yunqi nodded. If Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue worked together, it would be easy to deal with the Feng clan. However, did Gu Beiyue know Ning Cheng's attitude? Did he know that Ning Cheng also wanted to exterminate the Feng clan? If he knew, what choice would he make? Gu Beiyue and Long Fei Yi had hidden her identity together, so they came together. Now that her identity had been exposed, facing the loyal Ning Cheng, would Gu Beiyue still stand on East Qin's side? What about Gu? He must still be investigating Bai Yu Qiao with Mu Linger right now. If Gu knew that she was with Long Fei Yi, what kind of reaction would he have? What kind of ideas would Ning Cheng have for Bai Yu Qiao? Han Yunqi could not interfere, but Gu Beiyue and Gu were involved in this matter, so they had the right to know the truth. Su Donglin, tell His Highness that I have something important to discuss with him. Tell him to find a way to see me alone. Han Yunqi said in a low voice. She had many things to ask Long Fei Yi. For example, did Gu Beiyue know the whereabouts of the little thing? For example, did Long Fei Yi pretend to have Bailey Mingxiang come to Heaven Mountain to trick Bai Yanqing? Who could dual cultivate with Long Fei Yi? What kind of person would dual cultivate with him? What kind of dual cultivation would it be? Would it be like when he cultivated his internal energy, going into seclusion for a long time? Moreover, it seemed that he still had to say something about his true identity. In any case, a bunch of things. Yes, this subordinate will report when we change shifts, Su Donglin said respectfully. Change shifts? Han Yunqi didn't understand. Mistress, General Bailey sent mermaid soldiers to guard you too. The mermaid soldiers and shadow guard take turns standing guard. Su Donglin stealthily pointed at the soldiers not far away and whispered, Master, these 3 circles are all for your protection? General Bailey even suggested to His Highness that you be locked up in the Commander-in-Chief's estate in the South Central regions, but His Highness refused. Han Yunqi smiled wryly. Su Donglin, Chu Shifeng hates me so much. Don't you and Uncle Gao hate me as well? Mistress, the Shadow Guard's mission is to obey orders. His Highness has you in his heart, so our duty is to protect you. Su Donglin fell silent for a long time before he spoke again. Mistress, I really hope that the enmity between Eastern and Western Qin is just a misunderstanding. You and His Highness won't be so tired, so us servants will be able to relax. They had all heard their master's argument with Ning Cheng and remembered it in their hearts. Han Yunqi patted him on the shoulder without a word, but she was praying silently in her heart. Han Yunqi asked a few more questions about the army before returning to her tent. There was nothing for her to pass the time, nor did she have a pile of questions to ask. All she could do was sit cross-legged on the tatami and cultivate the 3rd rank of the poison storage space. Before this, she couldn't calm her heart and enter a state of cultivation no matter how hard she tried. But now that she had a pile of things to deal with, she quickly calmed down. For no other reason than the fact that the misunderstanding between her and Long Fei Yi had been cleared up. Besides him, who else could truly disturb her heart? Han Yunqi hadn't been quiet for long before Su Donglin's voice sounded from outside. Western Qin's princess, His Highness has come to see you. Western Qin's princess? Han Yunqi was a little puzzled by this title. She had just walked out of the inner room when Long Fei Yi came in. He was wearing a purple robe and had the domineering aura of an emperor. He was extraordinarily noble, and his face was grave and stern, like a celestial being. Han Yunqi liked his purple robe, but before she could be pleasantly surprised, Bailey Yuanlong arrived. Behind him were the 3 deputy generals of the Bailey army, Xie, Wang, and Zhao. Long Fei Ye's expression was cold as usual, but the expressions of the other 4 generals weren't just cold. They were also full of hostility. Han Yunqi finally understood why Su Donglin had called her Western Qin's princess. Long Fei Yi naturally wouldn't take the initiative to bring Bailey Yuanlong and the others to see her, so Bailey Yuanlong must have received news that she had woken up and wanted to see her. Restraining her emotions, Han Yunshi also put on the airs of an imperial princess and walked to the side to sit down, her expression cold and aloof. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything, so she naturally kept her cool. Bailey Yuanlong must have brought 3 deputy generals over for a reason. Bailey Yuanlong's feelings toward Han Yunshi were actually very complicated. He had been convinced by Han Yunshi's abilities several times. Before Han Yunshi's identity had been exposed, he was still rejoicing that His Highness had such a virtuous wife. But everything changed after Han Yunshi's identity was exposed. Although His Highness hadn't answered his questions, he was still very confused. Did Han Yunshi already know his and His Highness's identities, so she deliberately hid by His Highness's side? Aside from his doubts, all that was left was hatred. Back then, the Bai clan had sacrificed so many mermaid soldiers for disaster relief. As the ruler of Western Qin, not only did they not care about the disaster, they even seized the opportunity to start a war. This was simply unforgivable. The hatred of his clan, the hatred of his country, and the hatred of his people made Bailey Yuanlong admire Han Yunshi, but it couldn't reduce his hatred in the slightest. Han Yunshi was the only one left in the entire Western Qin imperial family. She should receive the punishment that the Western Qin imperial family should receive. Bailey Yuanlong walked over to the tea table and pulled out a chair. "Your Highness, please." After Long Fei Yi sat down, Bailey Yuanlong finally opened his mouth. "Western Qin princess, please understand one thing. My East Qin will never cooperate with your Western Qin. This cessation of war was consensual. After the Feng clan is exterminated, old man won't be polite to you." Han Yunshi glanced at Long Fei Yi and saw his expressionless face. So she asked coldly, "So General Bailey thinks that imprisoning this princess here is already very polite? It's not like my army doesn't have a prison cell. If the Western Qin princess is interested, old man can take you there right now," Bailey Yuanlong said coldly. Han Yunshi stood up. "All right, let's go." As soon as she said this, Long Fei Yi immediately narrowed his eyes at her. It was so fast that no one saw it, but Han Yunshi saw it clearly. Seeing that he was in a bad mood, she actually felt a sense of schadenfreude. She pretended not to see his warning. "Your Highness, you also saw it. She asked for it. A hostage should act like a hostage." Bailey Yuanlong immediately ordered, "Come, take Han Yunshi to the prison cell, immediately." Long Fei Yi couldn't sit still when the soldiers came in. Just as he was about to speak, Han Yunshi beat him to it. She wouldn't cause trouble for him in front of Bailey Yuanlong. Coldly she said, "Long Fei Yi, when did this princess become a prisoner? Eastern and Western Qin stopped the war to deal with the Feng clan. This princess is staying here to show her sincerity, not to be a prisoner. Please understand, women are indeed childish." Bailey Yuanlong laughed loudly. Han Yunshi hated this kind of male chauvinist who mocked women the most. She said disdainfully, "General Bailey, how are women childish? Don't forget that this princess helped you solve many problems at the South Central Commander-in-Chief's manor. It was this princess who saved your daughter." "So what?" Bailey Yuanlong flew into a rage out of humiliation. Han Yunshi, cut the crap. Old man wants to ask you a few things. You'd better tell him the truth. Otherwise, don't blame old man for not giving you any face. As expected, he came with a purpose. Han Yunshi sneered. "If General Bailey wants to get information from this princess, then please turn back. I won't see you out." Han Yunshi, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Look clearly, this is the East Qin camp. Bailey Yuanlong said coldly. Chapter 848. Han Yunshi thought that Bailey Yuanlong had come with a purpose, but she never expected him to have this kind of attitude. This old general really didn't see her as a hostage, but rather as a prisoner. If she didn't answer his question today, what would he do? Putting aside their positions and statuses, Han Yunshi didn't like people who didn't understand things. When two countries were at war, they didn't kill envoys. When two countries were cooperating, they didn't make things difficult for hostages. This was a rule that everyone knew. Moreover, this wasn't just a rule, but a general's demeanor and bearing. Although Eastern and Western Qin weren't cooperating, they had at least agreed to stop fighting. Bailey Yuanlong was Long Fei Ye's #1 general. Could hatred really twist him like this? Even if Long Fei Ye wasn't sitting here, Han Yunxi could still straighten her back. Not to mention that Long Fei Ye was sitting here. Today, she wouldn't back down half a step. This princess wants to see what kind of wine East Qin dares to punish this princess with. Han Yunxi coldly said. You! Bailey Yuanlong didn't know what to do for a moment. He was just threatening and didn't really want to make a move. As for Han Yunxi, the Western Qin princess, he had argued with the crown prince all night. In the end, he had no choice but to recognize her as a hostage and put her under house arrest in a tent a li away from the main camp instead of locking her in a prison cell. Of course, he understood the rules. He also had poise, but he didn't want to show it in front of his enemy. Han Yunxi was so unyielding that Bailey Yuanlong couldn't back down. He gloomily looked at Long Fei Yi, but Long Fei Yi didn't even look at him. He was already brewing tea. Han Yunxi peeked at Long Fei out of the corner of her eye and almost laughed out loud at how relaxed he looked. At this time, Su Donglin, who was eavesdropping at the door, sympathized with Bailey Yuanlong. Bailey Yuanlong was doomed. He couldn't even deal with a Western Qin princess, let alone one with His Highness' secret help. In the end, Bailey Yuanlong shamelessly ignored Han Yunxi's stubbornness and asked coldly, Han Yunxi, does Ningqing have any news about the Black Clan and the Li Clan? Han Yunxi was inwardly alarmed. Bailey Yuanlong's question meant that Long Fei Yi also didn't have any news about these two nobles. Long Fei Ye's identity as the East Qin crown prince and her identity as the Western Qin princess had already been announced. Moreover, the two sides were already at war, but the Black Clan and Li Clan still hadn't made an appearance. What was the meaning of this? She'd heard Long Fei Yi say before that the other 6 noble clans had some strength besides the Shadow Clan, but they'd all hidden their identities to mingle in various parts of Cloud Realm Continent. In the past, the Black Clan had pledged loyalty to the East Qin Imperial Clan and was the main culprit behind the destruction of Western Qin's Imperial Clan. After the Western Qin Imperial Clan was destroyed, the Black Clan took control of the military and switched sides. Meanwhile, the Li Clan had always been a neutral party. In the final battle, the D Clan led the charge against the Black and Wind clans to destroy the East Qin Empire. If the Li Clan had made a move then, they would have changed the overall situation because their military strength was no less than the other powers. The Wind clan was an expert in the art of war, using Chiman Duanjia to set up formations. The Li clan, on the other hand, specialized in the true art of war. The Li clan was a descendant of the ancient school of military strategy. They had all sorts of books on the art of war and had many disciples. In the past, Eastern and Western Qin's armies had plenty of Li clan disciples. Aside from having military power, the Li clan had extraordinary influence in the military as well. Thus, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that the Li clan could change the overall situation. But it was precisely this kind of power that gave up on the war and disbanded their armies at the most critical moment. So where were the Li clan's descendants now? Were they living in seclusion, or were they hiding in one of the armies? Bailey Yuanlong had originally wanted to ask about the Li and Black clans. She had to admit that the whereabouts of these two clans were very important. Their appearance was very likely to affect the current situation. No wonder Bailey Yuanlong had come to question her so ungracefully. I don't know, Han Yunxi replied bluntly. But Bailey Yuanlong was at a loss. Are you the one who doesn't know? Or is it Ning Cheng who doesn't know? I don't know if Ning Cheng knows, Han Yunxi replied. You. Bailey Yuanlong suppressed his anger and said coldly, how could you not know? Han Yunxi, who are you trying to fool? This woman was the princess of Western Qin and Ning Cheng's servant. She must know everything about Ning Cheng. If I don't know, then I don't know. I'm tired. General Bailey, please return. Han Yunxi was too lazy to argue after giving the order to leave. This attitude made Bailey Yuanlong suspicious. He looked at Long Fei Yi again and saw that Long Fei Yi was still drinking tea. A trace of ruthlessness flashed through his eyes as he angrily said, Han Yunxi, This general will give you one last chance. Are you going to speak or not? Don't blame this general for not reminding you. My East Qin Army's prison is a water prison. The soldiers were already standing beside Han Yunshi, ready to move at any moment. Han Yunshi immediately rushed in front of Long Fei Yi, snatched the teacup from his mouth, and threw it to the ground. With a pung sound, the crowd suddenly quieted down. Bailey Yuanlong was also stunned. After following His Highness for so many years, no one had ever dared to throw away His Highness' teacup. Han Yunshi was simply seeking death. While he was shocked, Bailey Yuanlong was taking joy in her misfortune. It was good that Han Yunshi was so daring. If His Highness was angered, perhaps His Highness would agree to his suggestion and throw Han Yunshi into the water prison. Long Fei Yi glanced at the fragments on the ground. He didn't look at Han Yunshi as he coldly said, "Western Qin Princess, what is the meaning of this?" Han Yunshi didn't say anything. She picked up the remaining teacups and fiercely smashed them to the ground one by one. Pong, pong, pong. The sounds echoed through the tent. Finally, Han Yunshi picked up the teapot and fiercely smashed it at Bailey Yuanlong. Fortunately, Bailey Yuanlong took a step back and the teapot landed right at his feet, almost hitting him. Long Fei Yi was a bit surprised. Han Yunshi was only 3 steps away from him. She coldly looked at him and angrily said, "What is the meaning of this? Is this the meaning of this? A bunch of men like you came to bully a woman like me. Aren't you embarrassed? What is the meaning of this? Speak." Was Han Yunshi throwing a tantrum? Long Fei Yi hated women throwing tantrums and acting like tigresses the most. However, when he saw Han Yunshi like this, he actually had the urge to laugh. Of course, he endured it and remained expressionless. Han Yunshi seemed to be angry at Long Fei Yi, but all of her anger was directed at Bailey Yuanlong. Bailey Yuanlong was rendered speechless by her questions and was at a loss for what to do. Unexpectedly, Han Yunshi lifted the round tea tray on the table and threw it at him. Bailey Yuanlong was caught off guard and dodged in a sorry state. "You're bullying this princess, right? This princess will say it one last time. No matter what you ask, this princess won't say anything. It doesn't matter if you treat this princess as a hostage or a prisoner. It's up to you. You'd better lock this princess up in the water dungeon right now. Otherwise, this princess won't let you off," Han Yunshi said angrily. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. What did she mean? Did she want to continue making a scene? Sure enough, Han Yunshi turned around and started throwing things. She threw whatever she could get her hands on. The commotion grew louder and louder until everyone outside heard it. If Han Yunshi continued making a scene, she would definitely alarm the entire military camp. Bailey Yuanlong finally realized that he couldn't control the situation. He cast a pleading look at Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi was enjoying Han Yunshi's tantrum. When he saw Bailey Yuanlong look over, he coldly glared at him but didn't say anything. Bailey Yuanlong became even more anxious. Beside him, Deputy General Xie hurriedly whispered, "General, His Highness went through so much trouble to bring Han Yunshi over as a hostage. If you mess this up, it'll ruin everything." "General, begging His Highness is useless. His Highness already said that he couldn't get anything out of her, but you didn't listen and insisted on coming. Look at this." Deputy General Wang was also anxious. In the end, Deputy General Zhao stood up. "Western Qin Princess, please calm down, calm down. Our general has no intention of forcing you, but he's worried that the Feng clan, Black clan, and Li clan will join hands. If that happens, both your Western Qin and my East Qin will be in danger. That's why he wants to ask the princess." The deputy general was giving Bailey Yuanlong a way out. No matter how unwilling Bailey Yuanlong was, he had to go along with it. "Han Yunshi, that's exactly what this general means. This matter is very important, so you should think it over carefully," said Bailey Yuanlong. Han Yunshi sneered. Had these people never seen a woman throw a tantrum before? Could a woman be reasonable when she threw a tantrum? Of course not. "I don't care. Bailey Yuanlong, this princess has had enough of being a hostage," Han Yunshi said loudly. Outside the door, Su Donglin couldn't help but spit out, "Great aunt, you've only been here for a day, and you've already fallen asleep." Who knew that Han Yunshi would continue? "You can either send this princess back to Ningcheng today, or lock this princess up in the water dungeon. Don't blame this princess for not reminding you, but once this princess touches water, you'd better check if it's poison before you drink it." Bailey Yuanlong was dumbfounded, and the deputy generals had no choice. They were here to intimidate the hostage, but who knew things would turn out like this? They all cast inquiring gazes at Long Fei Yi. Finally, Long Fei Yi opened his golden mouth. "Han Yunshi, have you had enough?" Han Yunshi was startled. Why did these words sound so familiar? She quickly recovered and said coldly, "Long Fei Yi, I'll ask you one last time. Am I a hostage or a prisoner?" "Hostage," Long Fei Yi replied with certainty. "Hostages could be treated well, but prisoners could only be abused. Is there anyone who puts a hostage under house arrest like this? Do you want this princess to suffocate to death in this tent?" Han Yunshi questioned. "Then what do you want?" Long Fei Yi asked. "I want to enter and leave freely." As soon as Han Yunshi finished speaking, Bailey Yuanlong said sternly, "Absurd, impossible." As soon as Bailey Yuanlong finished speaking, Han Yunshi picked up the brush holder on the desk and threw it at him. Bailey Yuanlong dodged and was about to reprimand her, but Long Fei Yi glared at him, and he could only shut up. "You can walk within 1 li of this tent, but Su Donglin must follow you. If your identity is exposed after 1 li, you'll have to bear the consequences." Long Fei Yi warned coldly. Han Yunshi seized the opportunity to cause a ruckus. First, she wanted to warn Bailey Yuanlong that she wasn't someone to be trifled with. Second, she wanted to fight for some space for herself. She pretended to think for a while before snorting coldly. "Fine, I'll give you some face." A trace of craftiness flitted through her eyes, and she deliberately said, "After all, back then, you and I." Chapter 849. After all, back then, you and I what? At Han Yunshi's words, the tent grew even quieter. Long Fei's eyes flickered with amusement. Had this woman gotten addicted to playing with him? After all, back then, you and I were so in love. Han Yunshi deliberately emphasized the last 4 words. Bailey Yuanlong and the others didn't look too happy. Deputy General Xie whispered, "General, this woman is really shameless. She's still talking about the past at this time." "She doesn't feel ashamed, but His Highness does." Bailey Yuanlong muttered unhappily. "General, did His Highness know her identity back then?" Deputy General Zhao asked in a low voice. Bailey Yuanlong glared at him, but didn't say anything. The other 2 didn't dare to ask further. Actually, Bailey Yuanlong didn't know either. But regardless of whether he knew or not, he had suggested His Highness publicly admit that he knew about this woman's identity long ago and used her to appease the soldiers. Unfortunately, His Highness had angrily refuted him. Although His Highness didn't use women, it didn't mean he wasn't ashamed of his past emotional entanglement with this woman. Falling in love with his enemy and spoiling her to such an extent anyone would feel ashamed when they thought about it, wouldn't they? The 4 of them thought their master would take the opportunity to humiliate this woman, but he didn't say anything. Han Yunshi deliberately leaned over and provoked, "Long Fei Yi, don't you think so?" Bailey Yuanlong and the others were disdainful, waiting to watch a good show. Han Yunshi was so close that Long Fei Yi could reach out and grab her. She was certain that Long Fei Yi wouldn't dare do anything to her. He couldn't bear to insult her verbally, but he didn't dare to make a move in front of so many people. It was a rare opportunity to make this guy suffer. It would be a waste if she didn't play with it. Everyone watched. Long Fei Yi's expression was calm, and his voice was cold and aloof. He asked in return, "Han Yunshi, how were we in love back then?" The difference between humiliation and flirting was a matter of relationship. Therefore, in the eyes of Bailey Yuanlong and the others, even though the 2 of them appeared to be enemies on the surface, these words were a form of humiliation. However, in their actual relationship, no matter how humiliating they were, it could only be called teasing or even flirting. The smart Han Yunxi seemed to be cursed when she faced Long Fei Yi. She became stupid easily. Long Fei Yi not only used his mouth, but also his hands. He pulled Han Yunxi over and wrapped his arms around her waist, letting her come closer to him. Han Yunxi pressed her hands on the armrests of the chair to resist. Long Fei Yi's mouth curved into a cold and evil arc. He exerted force, and Han Yunxi's whole body was stuck to his body, unable to move. He gave a cold smile. "How are we affectionate? Han Yunxi, why don't you tell this prince?" Then, in front of everyone, he leaned over and whispered in her ear, "Is it fun? Long Fei Yi, that's enough." Han Yunxi was both angry and amused. "It's not enough." As he spoke, his large hand pressed down on her small buttocks and gently rubbed them. "Princess of Western Qin, it seems like you miss this prince's favor very much. If you announce to the world that you're willing to be this prince's bed slave, this prince doesn't mind rewarding you with a few rounds of affection." Han Yunxi's soul was about to shatter from the rubbing. It was as if a fire was gradually burning inside her. She finally understood that no matter the occasion, no matter when, Long Fei Yi wasn't someone she could flirt with. She would only be the one being flirted with. In the eyes of Bailey Yuanlong and the others, she was being humiliated to the extreme. The deputy generals all sneered, and Bailey Yuanlong was even more disdainful. However, he soon frowned. Though affectionate, these two were talking about meant pleasure in bed. Then, Bailey Yuanlong had always known that His Highness was cultivating the lust-bite power. But how could he know so much? He still didn't know the true purpose of his daughter, Bailey Mingxiang, coming to Tianshan. As for the matter of the lust-bite power and dual cultivation, only Tianshan Elder, Gu Beiwei, Bailey Mingxiang, and Bailey Mingxiang Shadow Guard, Adong, knew the details. Bailey Yuanlong remembered that when they were on Yuzhou Island, Han Yunxi still exposed the cinnabar on her arm. She was still a virgin. Now, it had been so long since that time on Yuzhou Island, and His Highness doted on her so much, she was probably already thinking of this. Bailey Yuanlong's first reaction was to look at Han Yunxi's stomach. The seed of the East Qin imperial family couldn't be planted in the stomach of a Western Qin princess. Bailey Yuanlong really couldn't imagine or accept that Han Yunxi was pregnant with His Highness' child. However, he was soon relieved. After Han Yunxi left Tianshan, she hadn't been with His Highness. It had been a few months, and her stomach was still flat. She definitely wasn't pregnant. If Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi knew that Bailey Yuanlong was worried about this, what would they think? In fact, it was no wonder that a general like Bailey Yuanlong would worry about this. The issue of the emperor's heir was a national matter, and all the civil and military officials would be concerned about it. Moreover, the East Qin imperial family only had Long Fei Yi as their sole heir. Who didn't want him to produce more offspring for the imperial family? "Let go of me." Han Yunxi was angry and struggled to get up. "Long Fei Yi, let go of me. You're shameless." Her anger was fake, but her desire to get up was real. If this continued, she didn't know how shameless his hands would become. Long Fei Yi sneered. "This crown prince thought you liked this crown prince's shamelessness, but it seems like this crown prince misunderstood." Then this loving face, will princess still give it or not? After Long Fei Yi said this, he let go of her. After all, Bailey Yuanlong wasn't an idiot. They had to know when to act. Han Yunxi stood up and awkwardly retreated. She hurriedly tidied up her clothes and angrily said, "Long Fei Yi, we'll do as you say." Although East Qin and Western Qin aren't cooperating, this princess still hopes that everyone will respect each other during the ceasefire and abide by the agreement. Long Fei Yi slowly tidied up his clothes and stood up. He coldly said, "This crown prince still has this bit of credibility." After he finished speaking, he turned to leave. When he reached the door, he coldly said, "General Bailey, why haven't you left yet?" Bailey Yuanlong and the others finally came to their senses and hurriedly followed him out. They were full of admiration for His Highness. A woman like Han Yunxi could only be subdued by His Highness. After everyone left, Han Yunxi stood in place. Her heart was still beating fast. She waited for a while before going out, but Long Fei Ye's figure had long disappeared. Her heart was suddenly filled with an indescribable sense of emptiness. Has His Highness returned to the main camp? She asked Su Donglin in a low voice. He went to the training field. Don't worry, Master. Bailey Yuanlong will definitely be scolded. Su Donglin chuckled in a low voice. As for how much Long Fei Yi scolded Bailey Yuanlong afterwards, there was no need to mention it. After this, Bailey Yuanlong probably wouldn't dare to act blindly without thinking again. If Bailey Yuanlong didn't dare to make a move, who else in the army would dare to cause trouble for Han Yunxi? Han Yunxi's move of killing the chicken to warn the monkey was supported by Long Fei Yi. She could be considered safe in the East Qin camp. At night, Han Yunxi originally thought that Long Fei Yi would come. She had already asked Su Donglin to pass on a message for her. However, no matter how long she waited, Long Fei Yi still didn't come. The mermaid soldiers were on night watch, so Han Yunxi didn't dare act blindly without thinking. She could only wait. Who would have thought that Su Donglin would use the excuse of delivering something to tell her that Long Fei Yi had received an urgent message at the training field and was temporarily going out with Bailey Yuanlong. They wouldn't be back for 2 or 3 days and couldn't come to see her. Where did he go? What's so urgent? Han Yunxi anxiously asked. It should be a military matter. Master, this subordinate can't find out about military matters unless His Highness tells me. Su Donglin helplessly said. Han Yunxi understood that this was the military camp after all, so there were rules. She wrote a letter to Gu and called Su Donglin over, telling him that she would personally deliver it. This letter would tell Gu the truth and her whereabouts. She wouldn't help Long Fei or Ning Cheng when it came to the Wen clan, but Gu Qixiao and Mu Linger were outsiders who had been dragged into the mess. They had the right to know the truth. After Su Donglin left, Han Yunxi tidied up and prepared to sleep. Deep into the night, the sounds of the training gradually disappeared and the entire military camp became quieter. However, Han Yunxi tossed and turned for a long time, unable to fall asleep. Perhaps it was because they hadn't spent enough time together in the past few days, but she missed him so much that she couldn't sleep. Long Fei Yi, where are you now? What are you doing? She closed her eyes, and her mind couldn't help but recall everything that had happened during the day. Every word and action he had humiliated her, even the endless entanglements from 2 days ago. His grave and stern face, his deep eyes, his heat, his heavy breathing, the sweat that flowed to the tip of his nose, his strength, his gentleness. Han Yunxi turned over and buried her head in the pillow. She had the urge to go find him. She really missed that man. Heavens, the night really did make people lose their minds. At this time, a guard's voice suddenly came from outside the tent. The Princess of Western Qin, Miss Bailey, requests an audience. Bailey Mingxiang? Han Yunxi had already changed in her nightgown and was too lazy to change her clothes. It was really inconvenient to not have a maidservant in the military camp. She didn't come out, but shouted, "Let her in!" After Bailey Mingxiang came in, he stood in front of the large hanging curtain and bowed respectfully. The Princess of Western Qin, may Mingxiang come in and speak with you? Han Yunxi hesitated for a moment, then said, "Come in." Bailey Mingxiang carefully lifted the curtain and walked in. He saw Han Yunxi lazily sitting on the tatami, wearing a nightgown with the front lapels. Ordinary women would wear their nightgowns neatly and with all the buttons buttoned, even if they were in their boudoir or going to bed. However, Han Yunxi didn't button a single button. The front lapels were casually closed, and the hint of wine red inside was faintly discernible. Although Bailey Mingxiang had served as a maidservant in the leisurely Cloud Pavilion, she rarely went to the attic. It was also the first time she saw Han Yunxi like this before she went to bed. Bailey Mingxiang, who was more conservative than ordinary women, was greatly alarmed and didn't dare to look. She knelt down and lowered her head. After a while, she said, "Esteemed Wang Fei." How long had it been since someone called her that? Han Yunxi actually felt a little nostalgic and sad. This title represented the memories of the past that couldn't be erased. However, she still interrupted Bailey Mingxiang. "What do you mean?" Su Donglin had already passed on Long Fei Ye's warning, so she had to be more cautious. Although Bailey Mingxiang was a good girl, she was still a member of the mermaid clan and Bailey Yuanlong's daughter. Chapter 850. Han Yunqi's wariness made Bailey Mingxiang extremely disappointed. Still, she quickly comforted herself that it was normal for esteemed Wang Fei to be on guard against her. After all, their positions were different now. Esteemed Wang Fei, Mingxiang has nothing else. Before she could finish, Han Yunqi cut her off unhappily. I'm no longer Qin Wang Fei, so you don't need to call me that. But Bailey Mingxiang raised her head anxiously. Long Fei Yi isn't Tianning's Duke of Qin either, is he? Bailey Mingxiang, I used to think of you as a sister, but now our sisterhood is over. You should leave. Han Yunqi's heart was stifled and uncomfortable. Before she transmigrated, she had been an orphan all by herself. After arriving at the Duke of Qin's estate, she was looked down upon and humiliated until she was loved and respected by everyone. She almost believed that she wasn't alone anymore. Unfortunately, good times didn't last. When she thought of Chu Shifeng's enmity, Bailey Yuanlong's enmity, Zhao Mama, and the shadow guard who'd once served at the Duke of Qin's estate, she realized that most of them were probably enemies now. Bailey Mingxiang seemed to want to say something, but Han Yunqi's words made her eyes redden. She silently withdrew. After she left, Han Yunqi sighed softly to herself. Long Fei Yi had brought Bailey Mingxiang with him in the name of performing acupuncture. It was all to fool Bai Yanqing into thinking that Bailey Mingxiang was someone who could dual cultivate with Bai Yanqing. After Long Fei Yi left Celestial Mountain, the fact that he wasn't injured and didn't need to perform acupuncture had been exposed. Presumably, Bai Yanqing would suspect that Bailey Mingxiang was someone who could dual cultivate with Long Fei Yi. Han Yunqi didn't think about why Long Fei Yi chose Bailey Mingxiang. After all, she didn't know much about dual cultivation. She only thought that Bailey Mingxiang was a member of the mermaid clan and could easily gain Long Fei Yi's trust. Therefore, he had a good reason to choose her. She was immersed in her own thoughts when Bailey Mingxiang, who had already left, suddenly lifted the curtain and walked in. What are you doing? Han Yunqi was shocked. Bailey Mingxiang came forward and knelt in front of the tatami. Esteemed Wang Fei, Mingxiang knows that His Highness won't abandon you. Han Yunqi was slightly taken aback. Bailey Yuanlong hadn't noticed anything unusual about her and Long Fei Yi. So how could Bailey Mingxiang have noticed? This was illogical. Could it be that this was a test? I don't know what you're talking about. Get out immediately. Han Yunqi's voice was cold. Esteemed Wang Fei, His Highness abandoned the army and rushed to Medical City to find you. On the way, he heard that your identity had been exposed, so he abandoned the carriage like a madman to look for you. Mingxiang could tell that His Highness didn't hate you, but was worried about you. Moreover, His Highness must have known your identity long ago. Bailey Mingxiang explained quickly. Han Yunqi knitted her brows and remained silent. Bailey Mingxiang continued. Esteemed Wang Fei Yu, she raised her head to look at Han Yunqi's collarbone. Han Yunqi was stunned at first, but then she immediately pulled her clothes up to cover it. How could she have forgotten about this? Bailey Mingxiang looked weak, but she was very careful and had sharp eyes. Long Fei Yi had left countless marks on her body 2 days ago. Just that time in the carriage, he had bitten her neck and left a bruise. Although Bailey Mingxiang was a virgin, she was still an adult. How could she not understand? This kind of mark would disappear in 2 or 3 days. She had fallen into Long Fei Yi's hands 2 or 3 days ago. Other than Long Fei Yi, who else would have the guts to do this? Anyone with a brain would know what was going on just by thinking about it. Long Fei Yi was a serious germaphobe and a self-disciplined person. If he didn't love Han Yunqi to the bone, how could he do this to her? There was no need for Bailey Mingxiang to explain. The two women were well aware of the situation. Han Yunqi remained silent and didn't say a word. Bailey Mingxiang became even more anxious and hurriedly said, Esteemed Wang Fei, Mingxiang already knew about your identity. When Su Xiaoyu scalded you, Mingxiang saw the phoenix birthmark when Mingxiang was applying medicine for you. When Mingxiang was young, Mingxiang read about it in an ancient book in the storehouse. The daughters of the Western Qin imperial family would always have a phoenix birthmark on their backs within 5 generations. Han Yunxi was shocked. She didn't expect Bailey Mingxiang to have hidden it so well. She had known about it for so long and had kept it a secret until now. Ningcheng had told her about the birthmark in detail. Lady Tianxin's mother was the first generation of the Western Qin imperial family's legitimate daughter. Lady Tianxin was the second generation, so Mingxiang was the third generation. Therefore, she definitely had the birthmark. In fact, if the Western Qin imperial family hadn't been destroyed, her princess's granddaughter would have been far from the legitimate line of the imperial family. Seeing Han Yunxi's expression, Bailey Mingxiang hurriedly explained, "Esteemed Wang Fei." Mingxiang always thought that His Highness didn't know, so Mingxiang didn't dare to say it. Mingxiang. Bailey Mingxiang's eyes were wet. Mingxiang only hopes that esteemed Wang Fei will always be esteemed Wang Fei, and that His Highness will always be His Highness. She'd never forget the first time she'd seen Long Fei by the lake in their backyard. She'd never forget his silent face. She didn't like esteemed Wang Fei, who was so carefree, shouldering so much, and she didn't want His Highness Duke of Qin to bear such heavy responsibilities. She only hoped that they would be safe. She didn't ask for anything else. It would be great if she could quietly wait on them. Han Yunxi looked at Bailey Mingxiang and didn't know what to say. Su Donglin's words had moved her. She never thought that there would be such a silly girl like Bailey Mingxiang, who said that hatred couldn't be erased. Han Yunxi was extremely moved. She smiled and said, "I didn't dote on you guys for nothing." With Han Yunxi's words, Bailey Mingxiang finally breathed a sigh of relief. It's Mingxiang's good fortune that esteemed Wang Fei is willing to believe in Mingxiang. You're obviously very smart, so why do you keep saying such silly things? Han Yunxi had a helpless expression. She pulled Bailey Mingxiang over and sat down. "That's fine too. I can't sleep, so why don't you talk to me?" Bailey Mingxiang didn't dare to sit too close and kept a distance. Although she wasn't close, she could clearly see the marks on Han Yunxi's neck and several hickeys on her arms. These were all left behind by His Highness. There were so many and so deep. How many times did he do it? How intense was it? His Highness was such a cold person. What would he be like when he got hot? Bailey Mingxiang didn't dare to think too much. She hurriedly stopped herself from thinking about this terrifying question. Her ears were bright red. Noticing Bailey Mingxiang's bashfulness, Han Yunxi tightened her clothes. She rolled down her sleeves and pulled down her skirt. Bailey Mingxiang was a well-behaved and conservative woman. How could she stand the coolness of her body? Moreover, her body was covered in ambiguous marks. Although Han Yunxi did as the Romans did and was restricted by Long Fei Yi, she was still very well-behaved. However, when it came to sleeping, she really couldn't get used to the restrictions of the ancient people. After being restricted for a day, she needed to be free and unrestrained when she slept for a night. Her nightgown and nightgown were all custom-made. When she slept in leisurely Cloud Pavilion, she would at most wear a nightgown or a nightgown with straps. If she was so tired that she needed to catch up on sleep, she would definitely soak in a hot bath, eat fruit, and then curl up under the blankets. She would comfortably sleep until the sky darkened and the earth darkened until she woke up hungry. Unfortunately, this was the military camp. Moreover, she didn't bring any clothes, so she could only make do. Look, she was still wearing that wine-red undergarment under her nightgown. Bailey Mingxiang also noticed Han Yunxi's bashfulness. She became even more embarrassed and lowered her head, not daring to look at her. Naturally, Han Yunxi wouldn't bring up such intimate matters as a topic of conversation. She dispelled the awkwardness with a single sentence. "Where did your father and Long Fei Yi go?" "I also don't know." In the afternoon, His Highness left first at the training ground. My father went back to the camp to pack his things and hurriedly chased after them. It seems that they went to a nearby town. I don't know when they'll be back. Bailey Mingxiang replied. She hurriedly added, "Esteemed Princess Consort, I specially came to remind you. My father is still guarding against you and His Highness." "Why? What does he suspect?" Han Yunxi asked. When my father returned to the camp, I asked him a few questions. His meaning was, There's no harm in speaking frankly. His meaning was to guard against esteemed princess consort, seducing His Highness and using a honey trap. He said, His Highness has only had one woman in all these years. His Highness treats you differently. When Bailey Mingxiang said this, Han Yunqi almost laughed out loud. She couldn't help but harbor some thoughts. She wanted nothing more than to let Bailey Yuanlong know everything and anger him to death. However, it had to be said that Bailey Yuanlong understood Long Fei Yi quite well. Amen. I'll keep an eye on it, Han Yunqi said seriously. Esteemed Princess Consort, it's inconvenient to be in the military camp. How about I tell my father to come over and serve you when he returns? Just lie to him and tell him that I'm here to keep an eye on you? Bailey Mingxiang said excitedly. Your father isn't that easy to fool. You must not come over. Han Yunqi refused decisively. Bailey Mingxiang had ignored Bailey Yuanlong's objections and followed her for so long. If he came over at this juncture, he would only cause trouble. Later, I'll have His Highness find a maidservant. Han Yunqi changed the topic. Mingxiang, what's dual cultivation? How do you cultivate it? Do you understand? What she really wanted to discuss with Bailey Mingxiang was this matter. Bailey Mingxiang was put in a difficult position. I don't know either. When I went to Tianshan, Elder Kinzo taught me the Nirvana Sutra and some swordsmanship routines. He didn't say anything else. You don't know anything about it? Han Yunqi was suspicious. Bailey Mingxiang thought for a moment, then hurriedly said, Oh right, Elder Kinzo said that dual cultivation can only be done by someone who is as talented as His Highness in martial arts. In any case, it can only be higher than His Highness, not lower. Two martial arts experts cultivating in seclusion together? Han Yunqi muttered to herself. That should be the case. Bailey Mingxiang also thought so. Han Yunqi thought of Gu Beiyue. Gu Beiyue's shadow technique was superb. With that kind of shadow technique, he must have extremely powerful internal energy. Gu Beiyue was so young, yet he could cultivate such superb shadow techniques with his sickly body. His martial arts talent must be extremely high. If Gu Beiyue recovered his martial arts, he would be a good candidate. Mingxiang, don't come to my place. It's best if you don't come over. Han Yunqi said seriously. Since His Highness is using you to lure the snake out of its hole, I'm sure Bai Yanqing will send someone to keep an eye on you. Bailey Mingxiang only just remembered this matter and immediately understood. Other than Adong, she also had several experts from Tianshan Kinzo protecting her. They were waiting for Bai Yanqing to make a move. Esteemed Wang Fei, then Mingxiang will take her leave. Bailey Mingxiang hurriedly turned to leave. Don't call me esteemed Wang Fei. From now on, call me Princess. Han Yunqi reminded her. Bailey Mingxiang nodded and hurriedly left. That night, Long Fei Yi didn't return. Early the next morning, Han Yunqi didn't fall asleep until daybreak. But not long after, she was awakened by a familiar smell. Chapter 851. Han Yunqi lazily got up and wrapped her clothes around herself. Just as she was about to get up, she was suddenly startled awake. She carefully sniffed the air and immediately recognized that it was the aroma of old hen soup. She was so scared that she broke out in a cold sweat. She blurted out, "Zhao Mama." As soon as her voice fell, the curtain was suddenly lifted. She saw Zhao Mama standing by the curtain. She seemed to have specially dressed up. Her hair was neatly combed, and there were many vows inserted. Her face was radiant, and her spirit was refreshed. She held the curtain with one hand, and the other hand was very politely placed on her abdomen. Her lean body stood perfectly straight, very much like a rigid old court lady in the palace. However, her face was smiling like the Maitreya Buddha, and her eyes were squinted into a straight line. "Master, this old servant is here." After Zhao Mama finished speaking, she no longer had any manners. She covered her mouth with both hands and began to laugh, unable to close her mouth. The day before yesterday, when she received His Highness's order, she and a shadow guard rushed over day and night. If it wasn't for the fact that she brought 10 old hens and was delayed several times on the way, she would have arrived yesterday evening instead of at dawn. Han Yunxi's mouth twitched a few times before she spoke. Zhao Mama. Long time no see. Zhao Mama glanced outside and quickly came in. She leaned close to Han Yunxi's ear and whispered, Master, His Highness Shadow Guard has told this old servant everything. Master, don't worry, this old servant will call you princess in the future. This old servant is not from East Qin or Western Qin. This old servant is one of you and His Highness people. As she spoke, she couldn't help but giggle twice. She forced herself to stop and continued. In the future, I will also be one of Little Master's people. Little Master? Han Yunxi was stunned and didn't understand. Granny Zhao smiled again. This smile could really be regarded as a joyous occasion. Princess, His Highness asked this old servant to come here. Did he explain everything clearly to this old servant? What did he tell you? Han Yunxi suddenly felt a little scared. His Highness told this old servant to nourish the princess's body well in the next few days. I can't let the princess feel the slightest discomfort. Granny Zhao replied honestly. Han Yunxi almost banged her head against the wall when she heard the words in the next few days and in the next few days. What was Long Fei trying to do? Zhao Mama was a shrewd old woman who'd come from the depths of the palace. She'd be able to understand Long Fei's implicit words perfectly. Even if Long Fei didn't have an underlying meaning, she'd be able to extend it to infinity. Zhao Mama sat down on the edge of the tatami and said earnestly, Mistress, His Highness was in such a hurry to find this old servant. You must be tired out these few days, right? Look at your face, it's already pale. This old servant has already told you that His Highness is young and full of vigor and energy. At his age, an ordinary man would already have 3 wives and 4 concubines. He only has you. If he doesn't torment you, who else can he torment? Look, you didn't listen to your elders, and now you're suffering, right? If this old servant didn't guess wrong, His Highness must have been tormenting you every night these few days, right? As Zhao Mama spoke, she snickered and her eyes began to size up Han Yunxi's body. As she looked, she said, Princess, this old servant will remind you again. His Highness is at the age where he's like a wolf or a tiger. You have to understand. Stop. Han Yunxi anxiously shouted. Her face was really pale. Zhao Mama wasn't a virgin Bailey Mingxiang, but a shrewd old palace maid. Many shameful things in the palace were taught by old palace maids like her. Even if Long Fei didn't understand, she would definitely understand. Did Long Fei really call Zhao Mama here just to make chicken soup for her to nourish her body? If she believed him, she wouldn't be surnamed Han. Princess, this old servant hasn't finished speaking. This old servant means, I know what you mean. No need to say more. Bring your soup over, I'll drink it all. Princess, drinking it all is a must. However, things are different now. This old servant has something to say to the princess. Zhao Mama's face was serious, even a little stern. How is things different now? If I drink it then, before Han Yunxi could finish, she immediately regretted it. As soon as she stopped, Zhao Mama immediately continued, Of course things are different now. In the past, when the princess was unconscious, His Highness ordered this to nourish the princess's body. But now the princess is... Where's the soup? I'm hungry. Hurry and bring it over. Han Yunxi forcefully interrupted. Zhao Mama hurriedly brought over the cooked chicken soup. Your Highness, I only arrived at dawn today. Time was too rushed, so I only made pure chicken soup. This old servant brought a lot of medicinal herbs and 10 old hens. From tomorrow onwards, aren't you afraid that Bailey Yuan Long and the others will find out? Han Yunxi's face was completely pale. Zhao Mama smiled mysteriously. Your Highness, this old servant has been in the palace for so many years and has never made a mistake, much less in the army. Don't worry, this old servant has a way. What way? Han Yunxi was still worried. This old servant will come and serve Miss Mingxiang. Miss Mingxiang will be of great use by His Highness's side. This old servant will come and serve her. Great General Bailey will be overjoyed. Zhao Mama chuckled. Han Yunxi understood. Your Highness, I'll drink the soup first, all right? All right. This old servant won't disturb the princess any longer. Princess, please drink slowly. When Zhao Mama said she wouldn't disturb, she didn't mean to withdraw. She knelt on the side and watched over her. Han Yunxi drank very slowly, but there was still a time when she finished the entire bowl. As soon as she put down the bowl, Zhao Mama took out 2 books with black covers and handed them to her with a chuckle. What? Han Yunxi didn't understand. She casually opened the book, and her worldview was completely destroyed. These books were none other than the enlightenment books the palace gave to the princes. They were similar to Chun Gong. Seeing that Han Yunxi's face was red, Zhao Mama lowered her voice. Princess, although His Highness dotes on you, you still have to know how to make him happy. Do you understand? In the future, His Highness will definitely be the ruler of a country. He will have 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, and it will be inevitable for the imperial family to flourish. If you don't learn a bit, you won't be able to guarantee that there will be someone younger and prettier than you in the future. Forgive this old servant for saying something unpleasant, but men are all greedy. Han Yunxi looked at Zhao Mama and suddenly realized that Zhao Mama was like an old woman who had weathered countless trials and tribulations in the palace. She had seen through everything. She was right. Men were all greedy. Moreover, as the only heir of the imperial family, Long Fei Yi had the responsibility of flourishing the imperial family's bloodline. No matter how favored a woman was, she had to resign herself to adversity. However, this law didn't apply to her. She wanted to see what Long Fei Yi would do in the future. Princess, do you understand? Zhao Mama pointed at the 2 books in Han Yunxi's hands. I understand. Many thanks, Mama. Han Yunxi said perfunctorily, then casually stuffed the 2 books under her pillow. Zhao Mama, how are things at Pilfine Pharmacy? How are Little E, and 7th Madam? Han Yunxi asked. Everything is fine at Pilfine Pharmacy. As for the Han family, this old servant hasn't seen them in a while. The princess isn't in the residence, and 7th Madam rarely comes over, Zhao Mama replied. Han Yunxi nodded. Mama, you can leave first. I'll change my clothes. I'll walk around with Su Donglin. Since she was free to walk around, Han Yunxi wanted to go out and get some fresh air. Of course, she also took the opportunity to send Zhao Mama away. Otherwise, who knew if Zhao Mama would ask her about the details of her relationship with Long Fei Yi? Just thinking about it was scary. Han Yunxi and Su Donglin leisurely strolled around the camp. Han Yunxi discovered that the camp was divided into 3 parts. They were in the center where the main camp and rations were. On the 2 sides, one was where the troops were stationed, and the other was where the training grounds were. Not far ahead was the battlefield. As soon as she and Su Donglin approached Long Fei Yi's main tent, they were immediately stopped by several mermaid soldiers. She didn't insist and turned to leave. She had a premonition that Long Fei Yi wouldn't be back so soon. As expected, Long Fei sent someone to report that he wouldn't be back until 3 days later. A few northernly spies with high martial arts had been discovered in the nearby towns. It wasn't clear whether they were sent by the northernly imperial clan or the Wind clan. Han Yunxi could only settle down and focus on cultivating the 3rd level of her poison storage space. But how could it be so easy to settle down? She couldn't sleep for 2 consecutive nights. Long Fei Yi was not only dealing with the spies, but also paying attention to the situation of the Foam clan in Northern Li. In a secret residence in the city, he had just finished interrogating 2 spies and ordered people to silence them when the Shadow Guard came over. Your Highness, Helion and her son have been handed over to concubine Zhao's people. They are expected to arrive at the Northern Li imperial capital in 10 days at the earliest. The Shadow Guard reported truthfully. Concubine Xiao was the biggest chess piece that Long Fei Yi had placed beside the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Concubine Xiao was not only a secret agent, but also a pillow talk that could influence the decisions of the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Where is Juni Xie? Long Fei Yi asked. He has been confined to Northern Li's Tiana City. The 30,000 horses are all left in the western suburbs of Tiana City. To the outside, it is said that they need to be examined by a veterinarian to prevent the horse plague. The Shadow Guard reported truthfully. Long Fei Ye's lips curled into a cold smile. The Northern Dynasty's emperor's actions were faster than he had expected. He was afraid that Ning Cheng would definitely sow discord. Long Fei Yi was not in a hurry. As long as concubine Zhao Sai took action, the Northern Dynasty's emperors would definitely not let Jun Yixie go. At that time, the old fox behind Jun Yixie would have no choice but to appear. Of course, the old fox would most likely appear in advance because the bait, Bailey Mingxiang, had long been targeted. The few spies who returned to the city this time were aiming for Bailey Mingxiang. He didn't believe that the old fox would not appear if he acted on both sides. What's the situation on Ning Cheng's side? Long Fei Yi asked again. I couldn't find out anything, but the princess sent a letter to Gu, the shadow guard reported. Han Yunxi had told him about how Gu and Mu Ling had interrogated by Yu Qiao in the capital. Long Fei Yi had always treated Gu as a troublemaker and was too lazy to pay attention to him. If they could get something out of Bai Yu Qiao's mouth, they wouldn't have to wait so long. Long Fei Yi thought for a while before saying, serve him with brush and ink. He personally wrote a letter to Gu Beiyue and sent it to Chu Tianin, who then contacted Gu Beiyue. Gu Beiyue had the right to know the truth. As for Gu Beiyue's choice, Long Fei Yi couldn't force him. After all, Gu Beiyue had chosen to work with him in order to hide Han Yunxi's identity. Now, everything had changed. After sending off the letter, Long Fei Yi asked casually, where's Bailey Yuanlong? The general is still personally distributing the weapons in the West. He's asked your highness to go over and inspect them, the shadow guard replied. The ceasefire was to prepare for an even bigger battle. The Tang clan had secretly delivered a new batch of weapons to the city. Bailey Yuanlong had personally arranged for them. Once he was done, Long Fei Yi could look over them and secretly distribute them to the various armies. Once this matter was settled, they could go back. The soonest was evening, and the latest was night. Tell him this crown prince will be there later, Long Fei Yi said before putting on his mask and heading out the door. The shadow guard didn't understand. He glanced back and saw his highness heading for the streets. Was his highness going to buy something? But when had his highness ever bought anything himself? Chapter 852. In the dead of night. With the cessation of the war between Eastern and Western Qin, the Western Qin bears were no longer as brightly lit as before. Instead, it was quiet. In the main tent, it was dark. Only the moonlight that shone through the skylight barely illuminated the small world around the desk. Ning Cheng sat beside the desk with his back to the wall. The moonlight shone down from above, but it couldn't illuminate his face. It only outlined the outline of his figure. Apart from his usual aloofness and solitude, he was filled with desolation. This kind of desolation emanated from his body and enveloped the darkness of the entire tent. The early autumn night became especially bleak because of this. In a month's time, it would be the Mid-Autumn Festival, the Reunion Festival. Ning Cheng suddenly leaned back, and the back of his chair hit the table and got stuck. He lay on his back, and when he looked up, his handsome face was bathed in the holy moonlight. He was as desolate as an abandoned child. Even the gentle moonlight would hurt him. He closed his eyes and immersed himself in his memories. There was only one person in his memories, Han Yunxi. At that time, she wasn't the princess of Western Qin. She was just the Qin Wangfei, just Han Yunxi. Her delicate and pretty little face was extremely angry, and her pair of cold phoenix eyes were burning with anger. She strode in from outside the pavilion and walked in front of him, picking up the wine on the table and fiercely splashing it on his face. She said, Ning Cheng, this wine is for you to wash your face. It's to remind you not to be so shameless. Don't think that no one can tell that you cheated with distiller's grain number 7. This scene kept repeating, and repeating again, along with her voice. That woman, with her petite body, was fearless in front of him, a man who was more than 8 meters tall. The aura she exuded was far stronger than his. Love at first sight wasn't love at first sight. It was an action, a sentence, or even a smile, or an angry face that was unforgettable and unforgettable. Han Yunxi would never know that her angry face was so beautiful in Ning Cheng's eyes. No one knew that after that time, Ning Cheng seemed to be possessed by a devil. Han Yunxi's angry face uncontrollably appeared in his mind. There was something unknown scratching in his heart. He really wanted to grab that woman, but he could only grab her golden needles. That scene repeated over and over again. Under the moonlight, Ning Cheng's cold and desolate face actually slowly bloomed with a smile. It was an incomparably pure smile, but it made one's heart ache. Compared to the princess of Western Qin, he loved Han Yunxi more. She was pure and simple. No one was Han Yunxi. Love is submission and loyalty. But now, he had such a thought. If he wasn't the descendant of the D clan, if he wasn't her servant, could he let go of everything and just be himself? To fight, snatch, and go crazy for the woman he loved? Suddenly, a voice interrupted Ning Cheng's thoughts. He, who had always been vigilant, did not realize that someone had already entered. "Master, you only just found out that this subordinate has entered." The guard's tone was serious. This guard was different from the others. He was a man in his 40s and used to be the personal attendant of Ning Cheng's father. After Ning Cheng's father passed away, he had served Ning Cheng ever since. He was Ning Cheng's martial arts master and had watched Ning Cheng grow up. Although he was Ning Cheng's personal bodyguard, he had the power to meddle in the affairs of the Ning clan troops and Cloud Realm Trade Consortium. Everyone called him Uncle Cheng. "Master, this is the letter the princess sent to Gu." It almost reached Gu's hands, but luckily he intercepted it in time. Uncle Cheng presented a letter with both hands. After Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi left, Ning Cheng realized that Han Yunxi had lied to him about everything. His first thought was naturally Gu and Mu Ling. Back then, he had used Gu to put on a show to win by Yanqing's trust. But he never expected Gu and Han Yunxi to put on a show as well and hide many things from him. As soon as Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi left, he reminded Ningyan and had her send people to keep watch in secret. As expected, they caught a secret letter between Han Yunxi and Gu. Ningqing opened the letter and read it before breaking into a cold smile. His smile was filled with endless pain and ruthlessness. Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi had told Gu the entire truth. If Gu saw this letter, would he be in as much pain as he was in now? Han Yunxi, is your heart cruel enough, or is Long Fei Yi really that good? Outsiders can't enter your eyes and your heart. Master, since the princess and Gu have private letters, if Gu doesn't receive the letter, he will definitely be suspicious. Uncle Cheng's words implied that Gu wasn't easy to deal with. Let Ningyan think of a way to send Mu Ling away first. I have my own ways to deal with the rest, Ning Cheng said cold. He had to have at least one hostage in his hands. Currently, it seemed that it could only be Mu Ling. Long Fei Yi wouldn't care about that girl, and perhaps Gu wouldn't really care, but Han Yunxi would definitely care about this cousin. Gu really wasn't an easy person to deal with. If he wanted to take back Bai Yu Qiao from his hands, he would have to put in a lot of effort. What's the situation with Jun Yixie? Ning Qing asked again. 30,000 horses are all stranded in the western suburbs of Heavenly River City. A few days ago, the president of the Northern Li Chamber of Commerce and several directors were invited to a banquet by the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Our people even spoke with them. However, I'm afraid that Eastchin also contributed a lot to this matter. Uncle Cheng saw that his master didn't have much of a reaction, so he reported, "We've already sent people to Heavenly River City, but Jun Yixie is surrounded by people from the 100 Poison sect. Their poison techniques are powerful, so it won't be easy to get close. Even if Bai Yanqing is there, we won't be able to do anything." Uncle Cheng's meaning was that if they had the help of Han Yunxi, a poison expert, everything would be much easier. How could Ning Qing not pick up on the hint? Seeing that Ning Cheng didn't speak, Uncle Cheng continued. This subordinate heard that the princess has been training a poison guard these years. They were selected from Long Fei Ye's shadow guard and personally taught them poison techniques. Although there aren't many of them, each one of them is proficient in poison techniques. There are also rumors that after Long Fei Yi gifted the City of Daughters to the princess, The princess's poison guards were stationed in the City of Daughters to teach her poison techniques. Master, the princess governs the City of Daughters under the mercenary system. Once those female assassins learn poison techniques, the consequences will be unimaginable. I didn't expect her to have this kind of ability. Ning Chung sneered. With Long Fei Yi standing on her toes, there's nothing she can't do. Master, if the princess can't be used by us. Before Uncle Chung could finish speaking, Ning Chung suddenly slammed the table with a bang. The princess will never be used by us, because we must be used by the princess. Uncle Chung, for my father's sake, this clan head will spare you this time. If there's a next time, you'll have to serve my father. Uncle Chung slapped himself. This subordinate knows his mistake. Is there still no news of Gu Beiyue's whereabouts? Ning Chung sighed. He needed a companion too much. We're still looking, but I'm afraid the odds are against him. That's right, Uncle Chung replied before adding, that's right, Ningen received Tang Li's secret missive yesterday. Ning Jing was released, and she's fine. She's already at the Tang clan. Master, if we can use the Tang sect's hidden weapons as weapons, we'll have a chance of winning. Tell Ning Jing that a year's time is almost up. If we don't get things done properly, she can forget about ever coming back. Ning Chung said coldly. That night, Ning Chung sat in his chair for the rest of the night. The next day, he resolutely set out on his journey back to Tianning's capital city. Meanwhile, Gu and Mu Ling were already there, interrogating Bai Yuqiao for days. That girl Bai Yuqiao's mouth was really stubborn. No matter how much Gu Qixiao tortured her, she didn't utter a peep. Mu Ling couldn't bear to see Bai Yuqiao drenched in blood. Bai Yuqiao was even younger than she was, so she really didn't deserve to suffer like this. Gu picked up the red-hot iron and toyed with it with interest. His long, narrow eyes narrowed into a smile, making him look like a cunning fox. Bai Yuqiao, although you're not as pretty as my poison lass, no one will want you in the future if your face is ruined. In general, Gu was in a good mood recently. When he thought about saving Gu Beiyue, then allying with Medicine City, and Ning Chung to help Poison Lass conquer the world, his mood improved even more. Leaving aside the power of Medicine City and Medical City, just the perplexing butterfly illusion in Poison Lass's hands and the fire of 10,000 poisons in his hands were enough to consign the Long Fei Yi to eternal damnation. Whoever had the perplexing butterfly illusion would own the world. After saving Gu Beiyue, he'd immediately start searching for the fire of 10,000 poisons. When he thought about how he'd soon be able to see Long Fei Yi's eternally cold face darken, he was filled with energy. The red-hot iron inched closer and closer to Bai Yuqiao's face. Bai Yuqiao could clearly feel the heat assaulting her face. In reality, she couldn't hold on much longer. Her master had heartlessly abandoned her, so she'd long harbored thoughts of betrayal. She hadn't dared to confess, not because she didn't want to, but because she was too afraid to betray her master. She had to think of a foolproof plan. Otherwise, even if Gu and the others let her go, her master wouldn't let her go. The only person she could think of was her senior brother, Juni Xie. Just as the iron was about to touch her face, Bai Yuqiao was about to shout, but Mu Ling suddenly grabbed Gu's hand. Chi brother, don't. Gu could see Bai Yuqiao's eyes that were about to compromise, but when Mu Ling stopped him, he lost all interest. He impatiently waved away Mu Ling's hand. You're so annoying. Get out. Even if Gu yelled at her, she wouldn't be afraid or upset. She'd long since gotten used to it. Chi brother. She grabbed Gu's arm, but who knew that Gu would suddenly throw Mu Ling to the ground? Mu Ling was in a bad state from the fall. A trace of helplessness flitted across Gu's eyes, but it quickly disappeared. He said coldly, if you don't get out, do you believe that I'll immediately send you back to Pilfine Pharmacy? Chi brother, don't ruin her face. Give her another chance. Before Mu Ling could finish speaking, Gu's beautiful face darkened. Mu Ling had no choice but to leave. After she left, Bai Yuqiao suddenly laughed coldly. Gu, I didn't think there would be such a foolish girl in this world. Is she as foolish as you? Gu's lips curved into a cynical smile. Bai Yanqing used you as a shield, but you're still willing to work for him? Girl, Chi brother, let me teach you a lesson. Every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. That's right, I'm foolish. But Mu Ling is even more foolish. All of Cloud Realm Continent knows you're a freak, a monster, but that girl still likes you. Ha, tell me, is her brain damaged? Bai Yuqiao laughed out loud as he finished. She'd been tortured to death by Gu over the past few days. Even if she wanted to confess, she'd have to bite him a few times before she was satisfied. Unfortunately, she was wrong. How could Gu Qixiao's heart be bitten so easily? How could it hurt? He is rather foolish, but it's a pity that this young master doesn't like him. Gu chuckled. Outside the door, Mu Linger, who hadn't left, heard everything clearly. Chapter 853. Mu Ling froze outside the door. She didn't know why, but that night when she brother would rather she die than let Ning Qing off, she hadn't been so upset. But when she eavesdropped on those words, she felt so terrible that she wanted to die. She remembered when she was very, very young, a mama had told her, Ling eavesdropping is the truest words. Mu Ling sniffled. She wanted to be brave like that night. But in the end, she couldn't take it anymore. Covering her face, she turned and ran, her tears drifting in the wind inside the room. After Gu finished speaking, he didn't hesitate to fiercely burn Bai Yuqiao's face with the iron. Caught off guard, Bai Yuqiao screamed in pain. Amidst the screams were Gu Qixiao's own words. This young gentleman forgot to tell you, but only this young gentleman is allowed to bully that silly girl. If you dare to scold her again, this young master will ruin the right side of your face too. Bai Yuqiao screamed as she stared at Gu Qixiao's devastatingly beautiful face, her body trembling. Everyone said that beautiful women had the hearts of snakes and scorpions, but beautiful men were even more so. Gu Qixiao was too frightening. Bai Yuqiao regretted her past actions. She should have confessed on the first day. I confess. I confess. Master's whereabouts are usually unknown. Even senior brother, and I don't know where he is. He's always been the one to contact us, so we have no way to find him, Bai Yuqiao said anxiously. But Gu wouldn't let go of the iron until he got the information he wanted. I only know that Master has a courtyard within Tianning's borders. Han Yunxi's servant girl, Su Xiaoyu, is imprisoned there. I can take you there, Bai Yuqiao said. Seeing that Gu had no intention of giving up, she hurriedly said, That's all I know. Let's go over there first and discuss the situation again. After saying that, she took the initiative to move her face closer. If you don't believe me, you can ruin my face too. Anyway, I don't want to live anymore. Only then did Gu put down the iron. At this time, Ningen came over. Just as Ningen was about to enter the room, Gu pushed her out and closed the door. How's Han Yunxi doing recently? He asked in a low voice. It was about time for Han Yunxi to send a letter. He had been waiting for it. Due to the recent ceasefire, there are a lot of things going on in the military, Ningen said calmly. Ceasefire? Gu was surprised. A few days ago, Princess and Ning Cheng went to negotiate with the Long Fei Yi. They decided to stop the war and deal with the Wen clan separately. Therefore, Bai Yuqiao is very important to us. Gu, whether or not Princess can win against the Long Fei Yi depends on you, Ningen said seriously. She's already confessed. Gu relayed Bai Yuqiao's words to Ning and was overjoyed. Gu, when I see Princess, I'll definitely put in a good word for you. Gu snorted. Do I need you to put in a good word for me? Put away your tricks and don't disgust me. Go and prepare. We'll set off tomorrow. Okay. As soon as Ningen left, she immediately sent a secret letter to Ning Cheng. Gu also secretly wrote a letter to Han Yunxi, asking about the ceasefire. Whether Gu's letter could reach Han Yunxi's hands was unknown. Chu Tianyin had already received a secret letter from the Long Fei Yi, but he was unable to contact Gu Beiwei. Previously, when he contacted Gu Beiwei, He used Gu Bei's goshawk to deliver the letter. When he sent the letter, Chu Tianyin only knew that Gu Beiwei was in by Yanqing's hands, but he didn't know where he was. The goshawk had already returned. Where could he find him? Helpless, he could only send the secret letter back to the Long Fei Yi. As for Gu Beiwei's situation, he could only wait for Gu Beiwei to take the initiative to contact him again. Everyone was looking for by Yanqing, and Juni Xie had also been inquiring about his master's whereabouts. He had finally dealt with the Crown Prince and Second Prince of Northern Li with great difficulty and smoothly brought the war horses to Northern Li. He thought that his master had already dealt with the Northern Dynasty's emperors, who knew that not only was his master missing, but the Northern Dynasty's emperors had also become suspicious of him and forced him to stay in Tiana City. It was early autumn in the north, and the vegetation had already begun to wither. The grass on the grassland had long since turned yellow, and the vast grassland was desolate. More than half a year of running around and tiring, but Juni Xie's face didn't show any signs of fatigue. He rode high on his horse, wearing a handsome riding suit. His facial features were deep, as if they had been deliberately sculpted by the heavens. He was very handsome. His hand holding the horsewhip casually brushed the hair at the corner of his eyebrows. A blood-red eyebrow nail was faintly discernible, adding a mysterious aura. As long as he wasn't in front of his master, by Yanqing, he would always be so high and mighty, arrogant, and insufferably arrogant. With nearly 100,000 war horses in hand, he should be even more high-spirited. However, at this moment, there was still a hint of worry in his eyes. Master, where exactly is he? What happened? He couldn't contact Bai Yuqiao, so he could only send people back to the 100 Poison sect to investigate the situation. The Northern Dynasty's emperors were suppressing him, and the Eastern and Western Qins suddenly stopped fighting. The situation had changed so much that he, who had just returned, couldn't see through it. Of course, he wasn't in a hurry. No matter why the Eastern and Western Qins stopped fighting, as long as he dealt with the Northern Dynasty's emperors well and controlled all the military power in Northern Li, he wasn't afraid of anyone. Although the Northern Dynasty's emperors were restricting him, he could resist at any time. He had already been stripped of his princely title, but he still had power. He could raise his army at any time. He was just waiting for the right time, and waiting for his master's explanation. Long Fei Yi was actually the crown prince of East Qin, and Han Yunxi was actually the princess of Western Qin. When did his master find out about this? Why didn't he tell him? Why? The man he couldn't compete with, the woman he couldn't get, actually had such an identity? Although he was gloomy, Juni Xie couldn't help but laugh cold when he thought about how the Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi were old enemies. What else could make him happier than this? Long Fei Yi didn't hesitate to send troops to surround Fishery Island to avenge Han Yunxi. Would he regret it now? Now that he thought about it, it was all a joke. Juni Xie couldn't wait to meet Long Fei on the battlefield. Then he'd have a good laugh at him. Thinking up to here, Juni Xie laughed cold. The attendants on the side were all terrified and confused. All of Cloud Realm continent seemed to have calmed down after the Eastern and Western Qin stopped fighting. But dark waves were brewing beneath the surface. A violent storm was slowly brewing as various factions made their own preparations. Besides Ning Cheng, no one else would have guessed that Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi didn't hate each other at all. Instead, they were even more affectionate than before. When Long Fei Yi went to find Bailey Yuanlong, he was empty-handed. Even the Shadow Guard had no idea if or what he'd bought. That was because he just sent away all of the Shadow Guard. Bailey Yuanlong had already been waiting for him for 4 hours. Your Highness, were you delayed by important matters? It wasn't clear if Long Fei Yi heard him, but he didn't reply. Bailey Yuanlong didn't dare to act rashly, since His Highness had no need to report his whereabouts to him. He respectfully invited Long Fei Yi to a seat of honor and presented him with a report. Your Highness, everything's been arranged. Please take a look. Long Fei Yi glanced at it before picking out a few places for Bailey Yuanlong to fix. In less time than it took to brew a cup of tea, master and servant had settled everything. By this time, it was already late at night. Your Highness, you've worked hard these past few days. Why don't you stay the night before heading back? asked Bailey Yuanlong. If His Highness hadn't been late, they could have gone back a long time ago. No need. Prepare the horse. Long Fei Yi stood up. His plan had gone awry. He hadn't expected that buying things would take so much time. If they set off at this time, they wouldn't arrive until tomorrow morning at the earliest. What was Han Yunxi doing? Was she asleep? The conditions in the barracks were simple and crude. Had she slept well these past few nights? Long Fei Yi seemed to have thought of something. The corners of his grave and stern lips silently curved into a mischievous curve. It was especially charming and sexy. Bailey Yuanlong ordered someone to prepare a carriage, but Long Fei Yi wanted to ride a horse. With no other choice, Bailey Yuanlong could only accompany him on the horse and rush back to the barracks through the night. In the dead of night, Han Yunxi had already woken up. Because she hadn't slept at all for the past 2 days, she was drowsy during the day and fell asleep easily. As a result, her biological clock had been reversed just like that. Last night, she'd woken up in the middle of the night and again tonight. The barracks weren't like other places. If it were other places, she could have asked Su Donglin to go out for a stroll. However, she'd already walked through the 1 li radius of the barracks. The moment she stepped out of the barracks, she saw soldiers. The person she missed hadn't come back yet. After tossing and turning for a while, Han Yunxi suddenly remembered something. She reached under her pillow and pulled out 2 black leather books. After hesitating for a while, she still opened them. If there were others present, she definitely wouldn't dare to look. However, she couldn't resist her curiosity and temptation when she was alone. Although the more she read, the redder her ears became. She still flipped through page after page. Sometimes she was shocked, sometimes she was frightened, sometimes she snickered, and sometimes she was embarrassed. As for what she saw, only she knew. These things were truly from the palace. They were simply too dirty. Han Yunxi was just about to read the second book when a rustling sound came from outside the tent. It was so late, and there was still movement. Could it be that Long Fei Yi had returned? Han Yunxi immediately panicked, and her face flushed red. She hurriedly stuffed the 2 books under her pillow, afraid that Long Fei Yi would come in and see them. However, she waited for a long time. The movement outside became louder and louder, but no one came over. She suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly. Long Fei Yi had left for a few days. Even if he came back, he would first go to the main barracks. How could he be like before, going straight to her leisurely cloud pavilion the moment he returned to the residence? She had indeed done something bad and was feeling guilty. Han Yunxi hurriedly dressed neatly. Long Fei Yi couldn't come to see her immediately, but she could go out and meet him. Who knew that the moment she stepped out, she would be disappointed? Long Fei Yi didn't come. Instead, he was at the main barracks. A group of soldiers were setting up the venue. It looked like they were going to hold a bonfire party. What's going on here? Han Yunxi casually asked the mermaid soldier. The mermaid soldier glanced at her and said coldly, "You have no right to know." "Su Donglin!" Han Yunxi immediately shouted. As expected, Su Donglin, who had been hiding in the shadows, immediately appeared. "Princess of Western Qin, what orders do you have?" Han Yunxi said unhappily. "What's the situation over there? Tell them to stop. Can't we sleep in the middle of the night? Where's your crown prince? Tell him to come over and explain." Chapter 854. Han Yunxi pretended to be arrogant and bossy, causing the mermaid soldiers beside her to look over. They were so angry that they almost flew into a rage, but in the end, they held it in. Su Donglin snickered and hurriedly explained, "Your Highness, His Highness can only see you tomorrow. As for the other side, there is a bonfire banquet tomorrow night. Time is tight, so we must hurry up and prepare." Han Yunxi said that just now because she wanted to find out news about Long Fei Yi. Hearing that Long Fei Yi would be back tomorrow, she was overjoyed. Why is there a bonfire banquet? Who is it to welcome? In her impression, the bonfire banquet in the army was a rather grand banquet, so there must be a reason for it. "Princess, tomorrow is the 7th day of the 7th month, the Qiqiao Festival, Su Donglin said. Han Yunxi suddenly realized that tomorrow was the 7th day of the 7th month. The 7th day of the 7th month was celebrated as Valentine's Day in modern times, but in ancient times, it also had the meaning of Valentine's Day. Qiqiao, Qiqiao. Women not only prayed for dexterity on this day, they also prayed for wealth, a happy and sweet marriage, and children. This festival was considered a women's festival. Han Yunxi did not understand why the army celebrated this festival. "We are all men. Why celebrate the Qiqiao festivals?" she asked disdainfully. "Could it be that your crown prince likes this festivals?" The mermaid soldiers looked over again, their faces full of anger. Why was this woman mocking the crown prince for no reason? What did the crown prince do to provoke her? The crown prince was already extremely benevolent for not imprisoning her. However, Su Donglin snickered. In the past, when His Highness was away for a few days, the princess would at most ask. Many times, she was so busy that she did not even know that His Highness had gone out and returned. But now, it had only been a few days, and she was talking about His Highness for a while. Su Donglin thought that it must be because they had been separated for too long and missed each other badly. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. "Princess, there is a tradition in the Bailey army. During the Qiqiao festival, the soldiers' wives and children are allowed to send gifts, and there is a quota for family members to visit. If the army was marching to war and could not visit, General Bailey would hold a banquet to celebrate the festival with everyone. This year, His Highness will be in the army, so naturally he will be with the army. We've already finished setting up the garrison area, so we should also set up a place for our main camp. Tomorrow night, His Highness will have a few cups of wine in the garrison area and will come over." Su Donglin paused for a moment before adding, "That's why we have to prepare for tonight's event. Please forgive us, Your Highness." "Is that so?" Han Yunxi nodded and asked teasingly, "All right then. Tell His Highness that this princess's sleep was disturbed tonight. Have him toast to this princess tomorrow night as an apology. Don't even think about it." The mermaid soldier couldn't take it anymore. Su Donglin immediately winked at him, indicating that he should not cause trouble and bring trouble to himself. Su Donglin was His Highness's favorite. Apart from Bailey Yuanlong, almost everyone in the tent had to give him face. The mermaid soldiers naturally didn't dare disobey him. They turned their heads away. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. "Don't worry, Your Highness. This one will definitely pass on Your Highness's message. Princess, please go back." Su Donglin winked at Han Yunxi as he spoke. Han Yunxi went back, perfectly satisfied. After putting on this show with Su Donglin, she had ample reason for Long Fei Yi to invite her to the banquet. When the time came, Bailey Yuanlong wouldn't be able to stop her. In any case, there was a place in the main camp, so she didn't have to go out and show her face in public. After confirming that Long Fei Yi would be back tomorrow, Han Yunxi was no longer upset. Since she couldn't sleep, she sat up to cultivate. The third level of the poison storage space was much more taxing than the previous 2 levels. Previously, she would always feel refreshed after finishing her cultivation, but now that she had reached the 3rd level, she had to take a nap to regain her energy. She didn't know if it was because she hadn't cultivated in a long time, but this time, Han Yunxi was really exhausted. She fell into a deep sleep at the first glimmer of dawn. The next morning, Long Fei Yi and Bailey Yuanlong returned. Both of them were travel-worn from the night's journey. When their horses reached the main camp, the soldiers immediately came to lead them. After Long Fei Yi dismounted, he glanced at Han Yunxi's tent and saw Su Donglin sitting at the entrance. Bailey Yuanlong dismounted and said, "Your Highness, hurry and rest. You'll have to host tonight's bonfire banquet. Many of the soldiers in the barracks haven't seen you before. They're all looking forward to it." Long Fei Yi grunted and strode toward the main tent. When he passed by Han Yunxi's tent, Su Donglin had already stood up to salute him. Long Fei Yi was clearly in a hurry, but he still stopped in front of Han Yunxi's tent. Su Donglin immediately came over. "Has she been well-behaved these past few days?" Long Fei Yi asked. Bailey Yuanlong also paid attention when he heard this. The Western Qin princess has been wandering around outside these past few days, spending most of her time in her tent. It's not convenient for this subordinate to go in, and I don't know what she's doing. Just last night, the soldiers woke her up when they were building firewood. She said that tonight's banquet would be your highness' punishment to apologize to her. Su Donglin reported. Bailey Yuanlong immediately snorted, self-righteous. She has no right to attend my East Qin Army's banquet. Su Donglin glanced at Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi didn't say whether Han Yunxi would be invited or not. He coldly said, "Call her out." Su Donglin shouted a few times through the curtains, but there was no response. What's going on? Long Fei Yi's eyes flashed with a trace of anxiety. Su Donglin naturally knew what was going on. The princess had been sleeping day and night these past few days. She hadn't come out the entire morning, so she must be sleeping in right now. However, Su Donglin didn't explain. He slapped his thigh. Io, nothing bad happened, right? The princess hasn't come out the entire morning. Your Highness, General, the Western Qin princess wouldn't have run away, right? As soon as his voice fell, Long Fei Yi charged in. Han Yunxi! Long Fei Yi cried out in alarm. No matter how deeply Han Yunxi slept, she was immediately awakened. In her daze, she heard Long Fei Yi's figure and immediately got up to lift the curtains. Her face was languid and sleepy, and her waist-length hair was casually scattered. Her nightgown was lightly tucked in, revealing her well-proportioned fair legs and snow-white jade-like arms. Her clothes were loose and overlapping, revealing her deep cleavage. Long Fei Yi was instantly stunned, but Han Yunxi woke up the moment she saw him. At that moment, Bailey Yuanlong also caught up. Your Highness, what's... The moment Bailey Yuanlong came in, Long Fei Yi suddenly flew forward and pushed Han Yunxi into the inner room, then casually lowered the thick curtains. Han Yunxi was caught off guard and almost fell. Fortunately, Long Fei Yi caught her wrist in time. She leaned back, and her nightgown also fell back, leaving both sides completely open. She really wasn't used to wearing the ancient people's underwear because it was too thin. She had to wear several layers to cover it up. That wine-red color was her custom-made chest. But even so, how could that wine-red color cover her proud peaks? Long Fei Yi's eyes met hers, and his gaze couldn't help but move downwards. He always looked at her beauty with a scrutinizing gaze, even a little serious, which made Han Yunxi feel a lingering fear. This guy was actually the scariest and most domineering when he was serious. Even she didn't have any room for negotiation. Bailey Yuanlong was still outside. Having seen Long Fei Yi lose control, Han Yunxi was really worried. She hurriedly pulled up her clothes to cover herself and whispered, Long Fei Yi. At that moment, Bailey Yuanlong was already asking loudly, Your Highness, are you inside? Did something happen? Is Han Yunxi still here? Is she all right? Long Fei Yi was actually indifferent and even stared at her. Han Yunxi was anxious. Just as she was about to remind him in a low voice, Long Fei Yi suddenly pulled her over. The moment she drew close, he buried his head in the deep ravine in front of her and took a fierce bite. After pausing for a moment, he released her and turned to leave. Han Yunxi was stunned. She stood in place, feeling as if something was teasing her body and heart. She felt an indescribable restlessness, but also a sense of emptiness and dissatisfaction. Long Fei Yi, Long Fei Yi. She cursed wildly in her heart. Despicable. Separated by a curtain, Long Fei Yi expressionlessly said to Bailey Yuanlong, She's asleep. Later, have Bailey Mingxiang arrange for a maidservant to serve her. There were no maids in the army, and there were pitifully few womenfolk. They could only find Bailey Mingxiang or Zhao Mama. Yes, it's good that she's fine. Your Highness should hurry and rest, Bailey Yuanlong replied. After Long Fei Yi and Bailey Yuanlong left, Han Yunxi's heart was still thumping wildly. By the time she hurriedly dressed and chased after them, Long Fei Yi had already returned to the main tent. When did you come back? Why didn't you wake me up? Han Yunxi whispered. Su Donglin looked innocent. Master, His Highness set off late last night and arrived at least one envoy ahead of time. This subordinate didn't expect it either. He traveled all night? Han Yinxi's heart ached. She originally wanted Su Donglin to think of a way to let her see Long Fei Yi, but now that she thought about it, it was better to let him rest. Tonight's bonfire party was bound to last until late into the night. Although his body was in good condition, she couldn't bear to torment him like this. Master, Bailey Yuanlong doesn't allow you to attend tonight's party. His Highness didn't say anything, so I don't know if you can attend. Su Donglin reminded her. His Highness is probably preparing to take a bath. This subordinate will go and ask after he rests. Han Yinxi nodded and didn't say anything. She thought that she would have to wait until tonight to have a chance to speak with Long Fei Yi alone. Ever since she had mentioned her background in the carriage, they hadn't had a chance to speak alone for several days. She didn't know what Long Fei Yi thought of that matter. Han Yinxi could only wait. Not long after, Zhao Mama led a few shadow guards over with 10 boxes. The mermaids immediately surrounded them. Zhao Mama, Zhao Mama complained. This old lady has lived for so long, but I've never seen a woman like her. His Highness gave her some color, and she could open up a dye house. She went straight to her nose. She actually asked for 10 boxes of clothes and accessories from His Highness. If he didn't give it, she said that she wanted Western Sheen to send it over. If we didn't send it to her, those who didn't know would think that our East Sheen couldn't even compare to a box of clothes and accessories. Tell me, isn't this infuriating? The mermaid soldiers had been suppressed by Su Donglin for the past few days, so they didn't dare speak up. Hearing Zhao Mama's loud scolding, they were very happy and immediately agreed. Zhao Mama took the chance to tell them to quickly send the things in so that they wouldn't be rushed. Thus, the 10 chests were carried into the tent without a hitch. Han Yinxi had already heard Zhao Mama singing. She looked at the 10 boxes suspiciously, with a face full of doubt. She left with the shadow guards before asking, Zhao Mama, what's going on? What is this? Chapter 855. Although these boxes weren't big, they weren't small either. 10 boxes lined up along the wall of the inner room. They couldn't fit in one row, so they had to line up in 2 rows. Zhao Mama laughed like a love-struck fool. Han Yunxi raised her eyebrows and looked at her, her heart trembling. She said patiently, Zhao Mama, when you're done laughing, tell me what's going on. Ever since Granny Zhao came to the barracks, she was always grinning from ear to ear whenever she saw the princess. Of course, this is a gift from His Highness. As for what it is, Princess will know once you open it. Han Yunxi saw Zhao Mama laughing so hard and didn't expect Zhao Mama to tell her anything. She nodded, okay, got it. She didn't move after she finished speaking, waiting for Zhao Mama to leave. However, Zhao Mama didn't move either. She just smiled at her with no intention of leaving. Actually, Zhao Mama didn't know what was in these 10 boxes either. Previously, His Highness had given the princess a big box of jewelry at Leisurely Cloud Pavilion. Zhao Mama only found out after asking around that His Highness had ordered the shadow guard to buy it. He didn't say what he wanted to buy, only that he wanted to buy the best and let the princess choose from a box. This time, Zhao Mama found out that His Highness had stood General Bailey up in the city and went shopping alone for half a day before he came back with these 10 boxes. Moreover, he didn't let the shadow guard accompany him. If it wasn't something private, why didn't he let the shadow guard follow him? How could Zhao Mama not be curious? How could she not let her imagination run wild? Han Yunxi didn't want Zhao Mama to leave. With so many things, it would be easier for Zhao Mama to help her organize them. However, when she saw Zhao Mama's harmless smile, she panicked. Han Yunxi was about to speak when Zhao Mama laughed and said, Princess, this old servant will help you open them. No, Han Yunxi didn't have a chance to refuse. Zhao Mama's actions were faster than her voice, and she suddenly opened the first box. The box was filled with shoes of various styles, but without exception, they were all conservative styles. Granny Zhao seemed a little disappointed, but she was still enthusiastic. Oh my, When did His Highness become so considerate? He even knows how to buy shoes? TSK, having a wife is really different. Han Yunqi was picking through the pile of shoes when she heard Zhao Mama's words. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. It was different now that he had a wife. These words seemed to be used to praise the wife for being virtuous. Would the husband be able to enjoy a good life? So far, she hadn't worried about Long Fei Ye's clothes. On the contrary, Long Fei Ye had bought shoes for her. If Zhao Mama's words weren't sarcastic, then what was? Han Yunqi frowned and looked at Zhao Mama. Zhao Mama was also looking at her. She realized that she had said something wrong. Princess, I didn't mean it that way. This old servant was overjoyed and spouted nonsense. Granny Zhao hurriedly explained. Han Yunqi's expression turned pensive, causing Zhao Mama to panic. Esteemed Wang Fei, this old servant really didn't mean it. This old servant, Zhao Mama, what size shoes and clothes does he wear? Han Yunqi asked seriously. When she thought about it carefully, she really wasn't qualified to be a wife. Zhao Mama was about to answer truthfully, but suddenly changed her words. Oh my, I left the tailor's measurements in the prince's residence. Princess, please take His Highness's measurements. His Highness has lost weight recently, and the previous measurements don't fit him. Actually, Han Yunqi immediately swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. Although Long Fei Ye had lost weight, only his face was thinner. His body was still very strong and didn't lose much weight. Not only did she see it, she also felt it. All right, then help me find a tape measure when you go back, Han Yunqi said as she opened the second chest. This was another box of shoes. Just like the first box, they were all well-made and famous goods. A pair of shoes was worth a lot, not to mention a box. Han Yunqi couldn't help but smile wryly. Long Fei's style of gift-giving was unique and unparalleled. It left a deep impression. Zhao Mama glanced at it and was even more disappointed. Why didn't His Highness know that the rarer something was, the more precious it was? Wasn't he afraid that the princess would become numb after seeing too many of them? Could it be that he avoided the shadow guard and bought these things? Han Yunqi looked at the 2 chests of shoes and felt much more at ease. She quickly opened up the remaining 8 chests and found that Long Fei had given her clothes and accessories. Han Yunqi used her fingers to pick up a dress and looked at it with interest. The dress was very nice, but it was very conservative. The collar was very high, and it supported the chin. Zhao Mama glanced at it and was very disappointed. She wanted to cry, but the corners of her mouth twitched, and she still smiled dutifully. She said, "Oh my, oh my, oh my." Han Yunqi looked back. You have a stomachache? Zhao Mama's smile was obviously uglier than crying. No, Princess, this old servant is just lamenting. Why does His Highness pamper you so much? I heard from the shadow guard that His Highness went shopping for half a day before buying them. 10 chests? That's a lot. In the future, everything the princess wears will be given by His Highness. Granny Zhao laughed mischievously and lowered her voice to say ambiguously, His Highness has been like this since he was young, overbearing. Princess, this old servant dares to bet that in the future, if you don't wear the clothes and shoes given by His Highness will definitely be unhappy. Cough, cough. Han Yunqi, who was drinking water, immediately choked. Goosebumps broke out all over her body, but she couldn't help but smile sweetly. As long as Long Fei Yi personally chose it, she would feel happy no matter what and how much he gave her. Zhao Mama caught a glimpse of the sweet smile on the princess's face and finally felt relieved. She felt that she needed to discuss the gift with His Highness, but she didn't have the guts to do so. All women only had one thought when they saw new clothes, and that was to try them on. Han Yunqi was no exception. Zhao Mama, help me hang up all the clothes. I want to try them on one by one. There was a bonfire banquet at night, and everyone had to be well-dressed. She was dressed from head to toe in the clothes given by Long Fei Yi. Let's see if he still doesn't think of a way to let her attend. Yes! Zhao Mama loved this kind of task the most. The inner room was too narrow, so Zhao Mama could only move things outside to tidy them up. The shoes were all placed on the ground, and the clothes were all hung up. Soon, more than half of the outer room was occupied. Han Yunqi tried on the clothes in the inner room. She tried on a few pieces in succession, and they all fit her very well. She walked out and asked casually, "Zhao Mama, did you tell His Highness my size?" Zhao Mama looked her up and down and praised, "His Highness has good taste. The clothes are beautiful, but you are even more beautiful." "You told His Highness my size?" Han Yunqi asked again. "No, His Highness. His Highness must have measured it himself." "Why, doesn't Princess know?" Granny Zhao said with a smile. "He didn't measure us together? Where did he get a tape measure?" Han Yunqi said seriously. "From the time she was rescued until now, the time he spent with her was limited. Even if he measured her while she was sleeping, he would still need a tape measure. Such a fit was definitely not a visual inspection. It must have been measured with a tape measure." "Yes, why would the army have a tape measure?" Zhao Mama smiled slyly. "Princess, this old servant can't help you find a tape measure, but this old servant can teach you a method to ensure that the energy is accurate and not the slightest bit off." Han Yunqi looked at herself in the mirror. She really liked the pink and purple silk dress on her body. She asked casually, "What method?" Zhao Mama immediately leaned closer and spread her thumb and middle finger. "Here, this is a ha." As she spoke, she gestured and measured Han Yunqi's body. "Princess, His Highness must have measured you like this. If you don't understand, let him teach you. If His Highness knew that you were going to make clothes for him, he would definitely be happy. When did Long Fei Yi measure her like this? Could it be when she was unconscious in the hot spring?" She didn't dare to think about the details when Long Fei Yi carried her out of the hot spring, helped her wipe the water off her body, and helped her put on her clothes. Now, when she thought about how he measured her body with his hand as a tape measure, she simply couldn't imagine it. That guy, did he help her put on her clothes first and then measure her? Or did he measure her first and then help her put it on? She didn't know at all. If she hadn't mentioned the measurements to Zhao Mama, she wouldn't have known that such a thing had happened. Besides this, what else did Long Fei Yi, that bastard, do while she was unconscious? Thinking of this, Han Yunqi's face suddenly burned up. However, Zhao Mama, who was the best at reading people's expressions, didn't notice Han Yunqi's expression because she took out a long brocade box from the bottom of the box. "Princess, what is this?" Zhao Mama asked suspiciously. Han Yunqi recognized this brocade box at a glance. This brocade box was exactly the same as the one that Long Fei Yi had used to store her torn purple muslin dress. That brocade box and that purple muslin dress were still in Ning Cheng's army camp, but she carried the 9 letters with her. Could it be that Long Fei Yi had specially given her a Chinese Valentine's Day gift? Zhao Mama didn't dare to open it without permission and hurriedly presented it to Han Yunqi. Han Yunqi carefully opened it and saw a pair of very exquisite earrings. The earrings were a pinkish purple and shaped like phoenix feathers. They hung with drooping tassels and were inlaid with fine crystals that glowed faintly with a pinkish purple light. At first glance, they looked very much like angel's wings. But upon closer inspection, one would discover that the phoenix feathers were the same as the birthmark on her back. Han Yunqi was pleasantly surprised. She examined them carefully and discovered that the character Yi was carved on the back of the phoenix feathers. Even if she was given the world and the country as her betrothal gift, it wouldn't be as good as this Yi character. Long Fei Yi, for all eternity, Yunqi will never let you down. Han Yunqi was still immersed in her emotions at the sight of the phoenix feather pendant when Zhao Mama fiddled with the brocade box and took out a wine-red doo-doo from its compartment. "Princess, His Highness also gifted you this," Zhao Mama said, before she couldn't help but laugh. "Princess, this is your undergarment." Han Yunqi looked at the doo-doo and saw that it was very conservative. It was no different from the vest she wore in modern times, so it really could count as an undergarment. She couldn't bring herself to be embarrassed by this item, but found it funny instead. Long Fei Yi had given her something like this and hidden it at the bottom of the brocade box. If she hadn't personally experienced his wickedness, she'd definitely believe that he didn't know anything about romance. She didn't even know how he'd bought this item in the store. Zhao Mama had already sighed 100 times in her heart. Princess, just try it. Don't waste His Highness's good intentions. Chapter 856. Zhao Mama had basically given up all hope. Han Yunxi, on the other hand, really liked Long Fei Ye's big and small gifts, as well as his secret gifts. He was such a cold and conservative person, yet he went to the store to buy these things for her. How much sincerity did he have? Since he had gone to such great lengths, she had to try it on. Han Yunxi tried on this purple dress in the inner room. It was surprisingly fitting and close-fitting. It was practically tailor-made. It had to be said that although this thing was called a tummy, it didn't look like a deep pocket at all when she wore it. It also didn't have the smell of undergarments. The wine-red color against her fair skin appeared even more charming, noble, and slightly mysterious. It was like red wine, pleasing to the eye and intoxicating. It was worthy of being personally chosen by Long Fei Yi. Han Yunxi really liked this dress and really wanted to wear it for Long Fei Yi to see. Zhao Mama walked in and weakly sized up Han Yunxi. She casually said, "Too little is too tight, too much is too wide." His Highness really measured it accurately. When these words came out, Han Yunxi was stunned. Granny Zhao, on the other hand, quivered. Her face, which was as listless as an old tangerine, suddenly glowed, and her dimples bloomed like a flower. Princess, His Highness measured it very carefully. This is simply too fitting. When did His Highness measure it? Did Princess not know? Zhao Mama meaningfully glanced at Han Yunxi's proud peaks. She covered her mouth and laughed. Even her face was flushed red. In terms of the size of close-fitting clothes, the bust was the most important. Even Zhao Mama, this shrewd old palace maid, blushed, let alone Han Yunxi, the person involved. She actually thought that he was conservative and full of sincerity. She even wanted to wear it for him to see. Han Yunxi wished she could dig a hole and bury herself. Long Fei, this is the gift you gave me. You bastard. You're even dirtier than Zhao Mama. Princess, put on that purple dress just now. His Highness will definitely be happy to wear it for tonight's bonfire party. Zhao Mama returned to her smiling state. After the princess came of age, the Jingshi Fang would send people to teach them the ways of adulthood. Although His Highness wasn't like other princes who flirted with women at a young age, he still grew up in the palace. How could he not know the ways of the world? Looking at the sincere gift on the princess, Zhao Mama knew that she didn't need to worry about His Highness. Han Yunxi only pretended not to hear Zhao Mama's words. She was about to chase her out when footsteps came from outside. Zhao Mama came out of her surprise and was about to speak. She was about to speak, but she was stopped. Zhao Mama wanted to laugh, but she didn't dare to laugh, and then she had to leave the rooms. When there was no more sound outside, Han Yunxi asked, "Zhao Mama? Zhao's here." As soon as her voice fell, the sound of footsteps could be heard again. It seemed that the footsteps were deliberately heavy so that she could hear them. Han Yunxi hadn't put on her outer garment when the person came in. It was none other than the gift giver, Long Fei Yi. He had just finished bathing, changed out of his formal clothes, and put on a white brocade robe. There was a jade belt around his waist, and his black hair was tied up high. After washing away the exhaustion from a night of running around, he looked refreshed. He didn't have his usual arrogance, coldness, and steadiness, and looked like a noble young master. When he came in, he saw that she was wearing her outer garment halfway. She was stunned and stopped. He leaned against the wall and crossed his arms. There was a smile on his face as he looked at her with interest. He was the one who gave her the outer garment and the inner garment, so she didn't know which one he was looking at. Han Yunxi quickly recovered her wits and put on her outer robes. She pretended not to know anything and deliberately bowed. "Good luck to Your Highness. Thank you for Your Highness's gift. How do you want to thank me?" Long Fei Yi raised his eyebrows and asked. Han Yunxi immediately stood up and looked at him. "Why did you give me so many? I can't wear them all. What about the earrings?" Long Fei Yi asked. He had spent a lot of effort on those things. In order to engrave his name, he had destroyed several pairs. It was his first time doing such meticulous work with his hands that wielded two swords and wielded two swords. If Han Yunqi didn't put them on, he would really be unhappy. Leaving aside everything else, Han Yunqi truly liked and was moved by the pair of phoenix feather earrings. She took the phoenix feather earrings and said to Long Fei Yi, "Help me put them on." She sat in front of the mirror and looked at Long Fei Yi standing behind her and leaning over. Long Fei Yi didn't know how to put them on, but he carefully tried to study them. He was afraid of hurting her, but he was also afraid that he couldn't put them on properly. Han Yunqi didn't teach him. She just sat there and let him fiddle with them. She looked at him in the mirror. He was quiet, focused, and incomparably gentle. She didn't expect him to be so patient. Looking at his slightly furrowed brows and his gentle gaze, Han Yunqi suddenly wished that this moment would last forever. Long Fei Yi, how lucky am I to be able to travel through 3,000 years to meet you and marry you. Han Yunqi couldn't help but reach out to gently stroke his handsome face. Long Fei glanced at her in the mirror and saw her smiling at him. He didn't make a sound, but allowed her to stroke his face as he continued to focus on his earrings. Han Yunqi gently caressed his ears, nose, and lips. He finally said in a low voice, "Be good, don't mess around. I haven't put them on properly." She was in his way. He believed everything she said. He didn't want to talk about this topic anymore. He propped his arm on the pillow and leaned against it. She leaned against his chest to rest. "Do the clothes fit?" he asked lazily. She immediately glared back. "Bad." He laughed out loud. If she answered like that, then she must know what he meant. His laughter only made her more embarrassed and angry. She turned to scratch him, but he stopped her and said seriously, "If you keep moving, I'll move too." She immediately stopped. She didn't want to faint here and miss the bonfire banquet tonight. He grew serious. "Arrange for a servant girl to serve you later. There's no need to go anywhere else in the army. If there's anything lacking, just tell the servant girl to buy it from the city." She nodded before suddenly laughing. "If that's not enough, you'll buy it yourself?" That, of course, was referring to that wine-red robe. She stared at him, waiting for his answer. Sure enough, he avoided her gaze in embarrassment. After a while, he leaned over and whispered in her ear. Hearing this, she couldn't help but laugh until she almost fainted. This fellow actually liked her custom-made tube top from before. He couldn't find a similar style and was afraid that she wouldn't like it, so he bought something else. The Honorable East Qin Crown Prince, the high and mighty Long Fei Yi. If the world knew that you did this kind of thing, what kind of reaction would they have? Han Yunqi was in Long Fei Ye's embrace, laughing like a flower. Long Fei Ye's brows tightly knit. He did not say a word as he turned over and pinned her under him. Was it that hard to make her stop laughing? Han Yunqi was laughing while struggling. Without knowing why, her jade arm reached out and pushed the pillow away, revealing the two black leather secret books. "What is this?" Long Fei Yi let go of her and brought one book over. Han Yunqi was shocked and quickly reached out to take it. Long Fei Yi immediately dodged and was even more curious. "What is this?" "Nothing, don't look." Han Yunqi panicked and charged over. Long Fei Yi did not expect this and was pushed down, falling back. However, he still grabbed the black leather secret book and did not let it go. Han Yunqi was on top of him, reaching out to grab it. It was a pity that her hand was not as long as Long Fei Yi's, so she could not reach it no matter how hard she tried. She was on top of him and tossing around like this. It was simply challenging his self-control. Long Fei Yi liked her challenge, and his lips curled into an evil smile. He deliberately gave the black leather secret book to her. When Han Yunqi was about to grab it, he immediately took it away. This made Han Yunqi anxious and angry, but she could do nothing. "What is this thing?" he asked. Give it to me, and I'll tell you." She lied to him. He was not that easily fooled. "Tell me and I'll give it to you. I'm begging you, give it back to me." She was about to cry as she cursed Zhao Mama several times in her heart. If Long Fei Yi knew what this was, she would have no face left. Looks like it's something good. Long Fei Yi raised his other hand and was about to flip through it when Han Yunxi suddenly grabbed his hand with a sudden burst of strength and reached for the black leather secret book. Long Fei Yi did not expect this and reflexively raised his hand, flinging the black leather secret book away. Half of it was exposed outside the curtains, while the other half was hidden behind them. It was unknown what was drawn on the page outside the curtains, but the page inside the curtains made Han Yunxi bury her head in Long Fei Ye's arms, not wanting to look up again. It was at this time that Bailey Yuanlong's angry roar came from outside the curtains. Su Donglin, this general is telling you, if this matter is delayed, you'll take full responsibility. Chapter 857. Bailey Yuanlong had an urgent matter to discuss with Long Fei Yi. He assumed that His Highness was resting in the main barracks, but he couldn't find him anywhere. He searched around the barracks again, but didn't find anyone. Only Han Yunxi was left. Su Donglin wouldn't let him in no matter what. Actually, he'd already been arguing with Su Donglin for a while, but not as loudly. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi had been too engrossed in each other to notice the commotion outside. By now, Bailey Yuanlong was so angry at Su Donglin that he was shouting. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi had no choice but to hear him. In truth, Su Donglin was also afraid that he wouldn't be able to stop Bailey Yuanlong. That was why he deliberately provoked Bailey Yuanlong into shouting and alerting the other two in the tent. General Bailey, it's not that this subordinate won't let you in, but it's really inconvenient. General, please calm down and forgive me. Su Donglin repeated the same words more than 10 times, but he still continued. Inconvenient, inconvenient. How could it be inconvenient for so long? Tell her to come out immediately. Bailey Yuanlong was smart enough to find Han Yunxi instead of Long Fei Yi. He'd been in the army for a long time and knew how to manage his troops. He wasn't stupid either. Telling Han Yunxi to come out counted as a form of probing. General Bailey, it's not that this subordinate won't call the princess out, but it's really inconvenient. General Bailey, please. Su Donglin's pretense was enough to infuriate Bailey Yuanlong to death. He cut him off angrily. If I don't anger, I won't forgive you. Su Donglin, if you don't call her out today, this general will hold you accountable. Of course the general can hold this subordinate accountable. But before you interrogate this subordinate, I ask that you greet His Highness Crown Prince first. Su Donglin straightened his back. He'd replaced Chu Shifeng as the head of the Shadow Guard. Although he didn't have as much power as General Bailey, his status wasn't low either. He wasn't easy to bully. When the army is outside, the monarch's orders cannot be obeyed. What's more, I'm dealing with a mere guard like you. Bailey Yuanlong didn't waste any more words with Su Donglin and abruptly pushed him away. At that moment, Zhao Mama suddenly scuttled out from the side and stood in front of Bailey Yuanlong, blocking him with her arms. General Bailey, the Western Qin princess is changing her clothes right now. The 10 boxes of clothes she requested were just delivered, so it's really inconvenient right now. General Bailey, although the princess of Western Qin is a hostage. Granny Zhao lowered her voice, but it's still his. Before she could finish speaking, Bailey Ling pushed Zhao Mama away with his palm and pushed her towards Su Donglin, who was about to come over. Su Donglin could only grab hold of Zhao Mama to prevent her from falling. Bailey Yuanlong took the opportunity to stride into the camp. Zhao Mama glanced at Su Donglin and anxiously chased after him. The inside of the tent was filled with Han Yunxi's clothes and shoes, but there was no sign of her. Bailey Yuanlong stood motionless and stared at the curtain. Although he was reckless, this was as far as he dared to go. If he went any further, he'd reach Han Yunxi's bedroom. No matter what, he wouldn't enter. Only now did Bailey Yuanlong realize the importance of arranging for a servant girl to serve here as soon as possible. Zhao Mama stood behind Bailey Yuanlong. Her old eyes were very sharp. As soon as she entered, she saw a book stuck in the lower corner of the curtain, half of it sticking out. Moreover, she could tell at a glance that it was the secret palace manual she'd given to the princess. In that instant, Granny Zhao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Zhao Mama only felt that Bailey Yuanlong was really asking for 1,000 knives. Bailey Yuanlong wasn't stupid. He and Su Donglin had quarreled so loudly, yet they hadn't alerted Han Yunxi. Given Han Yunxi's temperament, she would have come out long ago if there wasn't something fishy going on. She wouldn't be hiding like a tortoise when he was already here. Bailey Yuanlong was 100% sure that Han Yunxi was up to something. He was also 80% sure that His Highness was here. If His Highness was here, and in the inner room at that, then this matter wasn't ordinary. Bailey Yuanlong had long suspected this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so angry over an urgent matter. Bailey Yuanlong felt unwell at the thought of what might have happened. However, Bailey Yuanlong was at a loss as to what to do. He didn't know whether to advance or retreat. What should he do? If he retreated, he wouldn't feel at ease or reconciled. Moreover, he had urgent matters to report. If he entered, he couldn't and didn't dare. If he couldn't, it was because of etiquette. Not to mention Han Yunxi, he couldn't even barge into an ordinary servant girl's bedroom. If he didn't dare, it was because of his status. Even if His Highness was inside, he still wouldn't dare to barge in. In the end, he was the monarch, the lord. Bailey Yuanlong's eyes weren't muddled. After hesitating for a moment, he also saw something in the corner of the curtain. However, he knew it was a book, but he didn't know what kind of book it was. He took a step forward and was just about to take a closer look. Suddenly, the book turned a page. There was no wind in the tent. Even if there was wind, it might not necessarily be able to flip the book. It was stuck under the curtain and difficult to flip through. This was clearly man-made. So, the person behind the curtain was flipping through the book? At this very moment, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi were still lying on the edge of the tatami, very close to the curtain. Long Fei Yi was lying on his side, one hand propping up his head and the other slightly raised. He gently raised his hand, and an invisible force was applied to the little black book like a gust of wind. Another page was flipped over, and another new page of content appeared. It was frightening, causing one's face to turn red. Long Fei Yi only glanced at the content and didn't have the slightest interest. His interest was all on the face of the woman in his arms. Her expression was more brilliant and varied than any page in the book. Han Yunxi was so embarrassed that her entire face was burning, bright red like a ripe apple. She lowered her head in extreme embarrassment and wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Even if there was a crack in the ground, she wouldn't crawl into it, because she wanted to bang her head on the ground and die. Too embarrassing. How could she live? She also knew that Bailey Yuanlong was outside. She wanted to stop Long Fei Yi, but how? Didn't Long Fei Yi also know that Bailey Yuanlong was outside? He even deliberately flipped through the book to cause a commotion. What was he trying to do? With her current appearance, she absolutely believed that he wouldn't let Bailey Yuanlong barge in. Bailey Yuanlong didn't have the guts. But flipping through the book for others to see, wasn't it obvious that he was slandering her? Bailey Yuanlong couldn't be sure that Long Fei Yi was in the room, but he could definitely be sure that she was. What would Bailey Yuanlong think of her? Han Yunxi only felt that her illustrious reputation had been ruined by Zhao Mama's hands, and then completely ruined by Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi looked at her with interest. Seeing that she still didn't speak or raise her head, he raised his hand. He gently raised his hand, and the little black book flipped to another page. At this very moment, Bailey Yuanlong finally saw the contents of the book clearly. In that instant, even the uncouth man's face turned red. As for whether it was from embarrassment or anger, only he knew. Soon, his face turned from red to black. His hands clenched into fists, and his hair stood on end. His eyes were wide open, and his heart was heaving up and down. He looked remarkably like the king of hell. He took deep breaths, as if that was the only way to calm himself down. He opened his mouth several times, as if wanting to say something, but he was so angry that he couldn't speak. How he wished that he'd guessed wrong and that His Highness wasn't inside. Only that slut Han Yunxi was inside. Finally, at a loss, he angrily glared at Zhao Mama. Zhao Mama had originally been thinking about how to divert Bailey Yuanlong's attention and kick the little black book inside. Who knew that the two inside would actually play like this? They'd heard someone come in, but they could still calmly flip through the book. They were still reading. Zhao Mama's 3 views had been completely overturned. She couldn't evaluate His Highness, but her impression of the princess had undergone a 360-degree change. She looked so proper on the surface, but she was so dissolute and shameless in private. Those 2 books were clearly meant for her to read in private. Why did she take them out to read with His Highness? So, what if she read them? There were already people outside the curtains. So how could she flip through them so unscrupulously? Although Zhao Mama didn't cry, she couldn't help but wipe her eyes. They were full of bitter tears. His Highness and the princess didn't need her to worry. So what was she worrying about? She'd better obediently return to stewing her old hen soup. Under Bailey Yuanlong's raging gaze, Zhao Mama lowered her head and bent her waist as she timidly retreated. Su Donglin was burning with anxiety. He hurriedly asked, "Zhao Mama, what's going on? What's going on?" Bailey Yuanlong dared to rush in, but Su Donglin didn't even dare to barge into the outer room of the tent. Zhao Mama patted him on the shoulder and said earnestly, "Boy, be good and listen to me. There's nothing that His Highness and the princess can't handle. Don't worry blindly." With that, Granny Zhao left, leaving Su Donglin in a daze. Inside the tent, the room was silent except for the occasional rustling of pages being flipped. Bailey Yuanlong was like a fiendish god, standing there motionlessly as he stared at the book. In the inner room, Long Fei Yi was in a very good mood. Even Bailey Yuanlong couldn't affect him in the slightest. He admired Han Yunxi's bashful expression as the corners of his mouth rose again and again. Not long after, he finally couldn't help laughing out loud. Ha! Ha! He didn't dare flip through the book anymore. He picked her up with both hands and let her lie on top of him. He looked at her and laughed. Unbridled, and delightful. His unbridled laughter was simply bad news for Bailey Yuanlong outside the tent. Bailey Yuanlong couldn't deceive himself anymore. He, the East Qin Crown Prince, the only descendant of the East Qin imperial family, was immersed in the boudoir of a Western Qin princess, completely unrestrained. Han Yunxi couldn't take it anymore. She punched Long Fei Yi in the chest and roared, "Enough! What do you want?" "Those 2 books, where did you get them?" Long Fei Yi asked back. "Let me go. Enough." Han Yunxi was flustered and exasperated. If this continued, how could they continue their act? Did he really want her to live a life of captivity? Or did he want to fall out with Bailey Yuanlong and cause internal strife? "You won't say?" He ignored her protests and worries. "I'll ask you again. Who gave them to you?" "You." Before she could finish speaking, he suddenly flipped over and pressed her under his body, his eyes cold and confused. Han Yunxi was truly frightened. She warned in a low voice, "Long Fei Yi, are you crazy?" Long Fei Yi ignored her warning, so Han Yunxi could only surrender. "Zhao Mama gave them to me 2 days ago." "You read them?" Long Fei Yi asked again. Chapter 858. Han Yunxi truly couldn't imagine Bailey Yuanlong's expression as he stood outside the curtains. However, she didn't have the time to think too much at this moment, because she was like a clay Buddha crossing a river. She couldn't even protect herself. She had read these 2 books before and had unknowingly flipped through them. Not only did she regret reading them, but she also regretted being so careless as to casually stuff them under her pillow. No, no. No. What she regretted the most was accepting these 2 things from Zhao Mama. Even though Bailey Yuanlong was only separated from them by a curtain, Long Fei Yi was still very patient. He raised his brows and looked at her. "You've read them all?" Bailey Yuanlong naturally couldn't hear the secret conversation in the room, or else he'd probably spit out blood right now. How should Han Yunxi answer? Yes. How could she say that? If she hadn't read them, who the hell would believe it? How could she not have read the books stuffed under her pillow? Long Fei Ye's lips curled into a smile. Seeing her bashful appearance, he couldn't help but gently lift her chin and laugh. Han Yunxi, you're too naughty. Han Yunxi didn't refute or explain herself. She buried her head in his arms. She was clearly angry from embarrassment and kept hitting him, but she didn't hit him hard at all. As she hit him, she wrapped her arms around him and hugged him tightly. Long Fei liked nothing more than this little girl attitude of hers. He was in a great mood. He rubbed Han Yunxi's scattered hair and laughed loudly again. His hearty laughter resounded throughout the tent, deep and magnetic, sexy and enchanting. Finally, Bailey Yuanlong couldn't take it anymore and shouted angrily, "Your Highness the Crown Prince." Han Yunxi abruptly propped herself up from Long Fei Ye's chest and looked at him in horror. Long Fei Ye was still smiling. He lovingly rubbed her nose and said gently, "Go rest for a while. We'll attend the bonfire banquet tonight. There'll be a good show to watch." Han Yunxi pointed outside, worried and confused. "Leave it to me. Don't worry." He finally let go of her and got up. Bailey Yuanlong was waiting outside, so Han Yunxi didn't ask too many questions and delay. She wrapped herself in the quilt and retreated to one side. Long Fei Yi put on his inner robes, straightened his hair, and put on his white brocade robes. He buttoned his collar and tied his belt as he walked out. Han Yunxi sat and stared at him, feeling that his figure was even more imposing. As soon as Bailey Yuanlong saw Long Fei's disheveled appearance, he was so angry that smoke seemed to rise from his head. He couldn't say a word. He Yuanlong's eyes. "Longs, your Highness the First. Longs, look, long. S, long, S, TSS, T, longs, S to be of power to be." Long, Fei long, look. Bailey Yuanlong was immediately intimidated when he met his gaze, and most of his anger was extinguished. Although his master hadn't ascended the throne yet, the aura and dominance he exuded right now surpassed any of Cloud Realm Continent's current monarchs. Bailey Yuanlong could almost see the great Qin Empire's untouchable majesty. He was stunned. "General Bailey, this crown prince has made you dissatisfied. What do you plan to do?" Long Fei Ye's tone was as emotionless as ever, but Bailey Yuanlong fell to one knee. "This general definitely didn't mean that. This general doesn't dare. I beg your Highness's forgiveness. Definitely didn't mean that." Long Fei Yi laughed coldly. "Then what do you mean by disappointed?" Bailey Yuanlong had no way to explain himself. This general misspoke. May your Highness mete out punishment. He had been too angry and disappointed just now, which was why he had said those words. "Su Donglin, get in here." Long Fei Yi suddenly raged. Bailey Yuanlong's heart skipped a beat. Su Donglin had practically crawled inside, intimidated by his Highness's rage. "This crown prince told you to stand guard. Who allowed you to let him in?" Long Fei Yi asked. Su Donglin quickly fell to his knees. This subordinate tried to stop him for a long time, but General Bailey said this is the army. Even the monarch's orders can't be accepted, much less a mere guard like this subordinate. Bailey Yuanlong glared at him, but Su Donglin stared back magnanimously. Su Donglin wasn't slandering anyone after all. In the army, can the monarch's orders not be accepted? Long Fei Yi laughed coldly. Bailey Yuanlong, so that's what you meant. This crown prince understands. Your Highness. Bailey Yuanlong was truly frightened. He dropped to his other knee and prostrated himself on the ground. This general was muddle-headed and spoke indiscreetly. "I beg your Highness to spare my life. The Mermaid clan has recognized the East Qin imperial family as their master for over 300 years. Our sincerity can be witnessed by the sun and moon. I beg your Highness to spare this general on account of the Mermaid clan's generations of loyalty." This general knows his wrongs. Han Yunxi couldn't bear to hear this plea from behind the curtain. Bailey Yuanlong wasn't wrong. His entire heart was for Long Fei Ye's sake. "Where did you do wrong?" Long Fei Ye asked coldly. Bailey Yuanlong finally raised his head. This general was wrong in being disrespectful to your highness. The monarch's will is the monarch's order, the military's order. As a soldier, this general's obedience is the mandate of heaven. Looks like you haven't gone senile yet. Long Fei Yi was quite satisfied. He didn't have any misgivings today to let Bailey Yuanlong know that he favored Han Yunshi. He wanted to establish the monarch's might and make Bailey Yuanlong realize his status. He wanted to make him realize that between the monarch and the army, obedience was the most important. Because of Han Yunshi's background, this wasn't the first time Bailey Yuanlong had overstepped his boundaries. Long Fei Yi hadn't flared up because of the mermaid clan's loyalty and Bailey Yuanlong's lifelong devotion to duty. However, Bailey Yuanlong's actions today had angered him. When they returned today, Su Donglin had said that Han Yunshi wanted him to drink as punishment as an apology. Before he could say anything, Bailey Yuanlong had overstepped his bounds and directly refused. He hadn't said anything at that time, but that didn't mean he approved of Bailey Yuanlong's refusal. Seeing that His Highness's anger had subsided, Bailey Yuanlong's suspended heart finally relaxed a little. He'd never imagined that he'd lost his integrity at this age after spending most of his life in power. He had no choice but to use the mermaid clan's ancestors to plead for mercy. He glanced at the tightly closed curtain and wished he could drag Han Yunshi out and drown her in a pig cage right now. That woman must be hiding behind the curtain and laughing at him. Setting aside their differences, he admired Han Yunshi's abilities and style of doing things as a woman. But after seeing that book today, his impression of her was completely overturned. He never imagined that woman would be this debauched and shameless. Simply, His Highness' self-discipline and self-control had been cultivated through demonic training since he was young. His Highness was someone who would revive the East Qin Empire in the future, someone who would inherit the East Qin Empire's throne, someone who would spread the East Qin imperial family's bloodline. If this woman ruined his efforts and led him astray, what would he do if he became debauched? Thinking of this, Bailey Yuanlong hated Han Yunshi even more. Although he knew he'd been disrespectful to His Highness, overstepping his bounds, forgetting his duties, and making a grave mistake, he wouldn't back down even half a step when it came to Han Yunshi. Once His Highness calmed down, he would definitely ask clearly what had happened today. Why was His Highness still entangled with this woman? Long Fei Yi didn't reprimand Bailey Yuanlong any further and left with large strides. Bailey Yuanlong didn't dare stay any longer and followed him to the main tent. As soon as Long Fei Yi sat down, Bailey Yuanlong dismissed all the attendants. He knelt down on both knees and raised his hands above his head as he respectfully bowed. Your Highness, please forgive this general for being so bold, but this general has something to say. Long Fei Yi naturally knew Bailey Yuanlong wanted to talk about Han Yunshi. Coldly, he said, "Speak." Han Yunshi is the princess of Western Qin, our East Qin's #1 enemy. Your Highness didn't know her identity before and made her your concubine. That's pardonable. Now that you know her identity, you'll be in danger if you continue to entangle yourself with her. You won't be able to convince the public, you'll be letting down your ancestors, and you'll be endangering the restoration of the country. Your Highness, please reconsider, Bailey Yuanlong said seriously. He didn't have the authority to overstep his authority, but he did have the authority to advise. What if this prince isn't willing? Long Fei Yi asked. This general has no right to interfere with Your Highness' decisions. This general will obey Your Highness' orders. If Your Highness insists, this general will retire to guard the mausoleum and ask Your Highness to find a good general. Bailey Yuanlong's attitude was firm. A trace of gratification flashed through Long Fei Yi's eyes. In the end, Bailey Yuanlong didn't dare to raise an army and challenge his authority. Please come, he said indifferently. Bailey Yuanlong was overjoyed. Your Highness is wise. This prince didn't agree. Long Fei Yi said unhappily. Your Highness. Bailey Yuanlong was anxious and refused to get up. Your Highness, Han Yunshi's poison skills are exquisite. It's too dangerous for you to be with her. Even if your highness doesn't care about the opposition of the entire army, you must consider your own safety. Don't be bewitched by Han Yunshi. If your highness needs a woman, this general can find one no matter how beautiful she is. Bailey Yuanlong really hoped that his highness was only bewitched by Han Yunshi's beauty and couldn't resist the temptation of women. He didn't have true feelings for Han Yunshi. Actually, when he said this, even he felt like he was deceiving himself. Before meeting Han Yunshi, his highness had never touched women. After meeting Han Yunshi, he only pampered her and didn't touch other women. How could his highness touch Han Yunshi just because of women? Long Fei Yi leaned over and said word for word, Bailey Yuanlong, if this prince dies by her hands, I'm willing. Bailey Yuanlong's heart was filled with shock. Your highness! He loudly shouted and slumped to the ground. Your highness, you can't let down the East Qin ancestors and the soldiers who sacrificed themselves for East Qin. Your highness, have you forgotten how Consort died? This prince remembers it all. Bailey Yuanlong, don't worry, this prince knows his responsibilities. This prince will definitely recover East Qin's great cause. After taking care of the Feng clan, this prince will fight with Western Qin again. If I need to meet Han Yunshi in battle, this king won't take half a step back for her. However, whether I win or lose, this king will set my sights on her, unless this king dies in battle. Long Fei replied. This was what Han Yunshi had said to Ning Cheng before. A way to ensure peace in the world, since they both had their own responsibilities and loved each other. Then there was only one way, and that was to work hard to survive. Live until they fulfilled their promises, fulfilled their responsibilities, lived until they didn't let down their clansmen or the world, and then lived until they didn't let down each other. Both of them had to live well. Bailey Yuanlong looked at the master he had served for many years. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.